Chapter 1730. Sharp claws swept past, carrying a sinister dragon claw shadow, leaving faint claw marks in the air, directly aiming for Noah's chest. In Noah's eyes, the sharp claws gradually enlarged, as though they were announcing the arrival of death. They were closing in on Noah bit by bit. In this instant, Noah could be said to have reached the end of the road. The demon slayer in his hand was firmly imprisoned by Echinalia, not caring about the effects on his body, simply unable to move. In this case, with Noah's body that had returned to the human category after losing his ability value, he would definitely die on the spot after receiving that claw. But at this time, if the divine power in his body was converted into magic power, using the strengthening magic to strengthen his body, perhaps he would be able to withstand this attack. However, at that moment, Echinaolia's claw collided with the demon slayer and directly suppressed Aster, who had lost the support of his divine power, and similarly dealt a fatal blow to Noah. Of course, Noah could also use both magic power and divine power at the same time, achieving the dual use of both the elven device and the strengthening magic. But before this, Noah had already discovered that the difficulty of controlling two completely different types of energy was a lot higher than purely controlling one type of energy. If he used both types of energy at the same time, it would only cause the output of the two types of energy to decrease by a lot, causing the might of both the elven device and the strengthening magic to sharply decrease by more than half. In this way, he simply wouldn't be able to continue fighting Echinalia. Thus, in the battle between Noah and Echinalia, he had always only used divine power or magic power, absolutely not both at the same time. In any case, Echinalia's dragon physique completely came from the dragon slayer magic. As long as he had the demon slayer in hand, then even if Noah didn't use the strengthening magic to strengthen his body's ability would still be in the human realm. He could rely on the elven device to greatly weaken the might of Echinalia's dragon slayer magic, achieving the goal of directly confronting this pitch-black dragon king. In view of this, now that the demon slayer was imprisoned, facing Echinalia's furious claw, Noah had already reached the end of the road. Then, at this very moment, what other methods did Noah have to deal with the current situation? The three major spells of the fairy tale required an extremely long time to prepare, and simply couldn't be used in this moment of imminent peril. None of the simulated star map, another cosmology, was effective against Echinalia. In that case, in a situation where he could only use the divine might, there was only one trump card that Noah could use. Divine starlight, lightning of salvation, wisdom of the goddess, indestructible steel. Amidst the incantation written in the elven language, half of the elven mark on the back of Noah's left hand suddenly flickered. Sword, appear in my hand. Suddenly, Athena, who was standing by the side of the high mages of the fairy tale, had a pair of bewitching snake eyes that faintly flickered, and the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. Soon after, under the astonished gazes of the high mages of the fairy tale, Athena's body flashed with a resplendent radiance and turned into a platinum divine sword. She suddenly turned, broke through the air, and shot towards Noah's direction. Pa! With a crisp sound, the elven device called the Heavenly Sword of Salvation was caught in Noah's hand. Clang! A dazzling platinum light that was as bright as the sun suddenly blossomed from the Heavenly Sword of Salvation. The platinum light converged into a flash of light in the blink of an eye. Amidst Echinalia's abrupt change of expression, it suddenly shot out and shot towards Echinalia's sharp claws. In order to imprison the demon slayer, Echinalia directly used his hand to tightly grasp the demon slayer. Thus, under the power of the demon slayer, Echinalia's dragon slayer magic had been weakened by a large portion. What would be the result of using such a weakened dragon slayer magic to face a flash that could split stars? The answer was mercilessly revealed in the next second. Poochie! The resplendent flash burst out, and with a tearing sound, it directly pierced through Echinalia's arm and even annihilated that arm in the flash. Thick blood immediately sprayed into the sky. Woo! Woo ah 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 ah. Echinalia let out a low roar filled with pain. Under the intense pain, Echinalia released the demon slayer's shackles. Noah's eyes flashed with a touch of coldness, and he raised the demon slayer high. Clang! The silver sword light flashed, and with a sword hum, it suddenly swept down towards Echinalia. Poochie. Another tearing sound sounded, and a large amount of dark red blood sprayed in all directions. The demon slayer, which turned into a sword light, slashed diagonally along Econorolia's shoulder, causing blood to spurt out from Econorolia's body. A hideous wound appeared on Econorolia's body from his left shoulder to the right side of his abdomen. With a large amount of blood, Econorolia's body soared into the air, flew backwards, and slowly fell to the ground. Blood dyed the ground red. The whole world fell into silence. Everyone looked at Econorolia, who fell to the ground, with a large amount of blood flowing out from his body and staining the ground red. They all fell into a state of silence, including the dragons in the sky. Whether it was humans or dragons, at this moment, they all held their breath, and lost the ability to speak and react. Then, on the ground dyed red, Econorolia's body trembled and he coughed. Cough, cough, cough. Econorolia constantly coughed out blood, but as if he didn't allow himself to lie on the ground, he struggled to get up. However, the entire process of getting up was difficult and cruel. Naturally, it was difficult to avoid. After all, even if it was a dragon king, receiving such a serious injury was enough to kill him. Thus, how could it not be difficult to get up? As for cruelty, it referred to the scene itself. Even after suffering such a serious injury, he still insisted on getting up. During the whole process, blood spilled out from Econorolia's severed arm and the wound in front of his body as if it was free, dyeing the ground into a pool of blood. However, even so, Econorolia still insisted on getting up. After standing up with great difficulty, his body was crooked, as if he could fall down at any time. That scene could be described as tragic. Noah quietly watched this scene unfold. He didn't stop it, didn't say anything, and didn't pursue the victory. Instead, as if talking to himself, he softly said. At the last moment, he desperately jumped back a step. That's right. The moment the demon slayer slashed down, Econorolia jumped back a step, avoiding the result of being cut in half by the demon slayer. But you already have no chance of winning. Noah looked straight at Econorolia and said indifferently. It ends here, Econorolia. Hearing Noah's words, regardless of the reactions of the spectators and dragons, Econorolia trembled heavily and slowly raised his head. It ends here? Econorolia coldly looked at Noah, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, but he didn't care and growled. No. Until the moment of my life ends. I won't stop my destruction. 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 Econorolia roared towards the sky. I want to destroy. With a roar, Econorolia raised his remaining hand and formed a claw. Ignoring the large amount of blood that flowed out, he charged in Noah's direction. Looking at Econorolia who was charging towards him, Noah's eyes flickered. Before a feeling of pity emerged in his eyes, he closed his eyes. However, in Noah's hand, the elven magic device named Heavenly Sword of Salvation once again blossomed with a dazzling brilliance. The brilliance turned into streaks of platinum light. Like a laser, they suddenly shot out and directly shot towards Econorolia. Poochie, poochie, poochie. One after another, the streaks of light pierced through Econorolia's body and came out from his back. Without losing momentum, they shot into the distance and disappeared on the other side of the horizon. Chapter 1731. Bang! With a clear sound of falling to the ground, Econorolia, whose body was pierced by the light of salvation, slowly fell to the ground. The blood flowing out of his body had already stopped. Looking at the night sky dyed red by the flames, Econorolia's eyes filled with hostility became absent-minded little by little. His vision began to distort. His heart gradually stopped beating. At this moment, Econorolia clearly understood one thing. His destructive journey that had lasted for hundreds of years had finally come to an end. Not long after, the existence called Econorolia would completely disappear from this world. Just like what Igunal said. The era belonging to the Dragon King had impressively come to an end. Regarding this, Econorolia didn't feel sad, nor did he feel unwilling, nor did he have the slightest resentment. There was only a tranquility that mortals couldn't understand. When he was still a human, Econarolia was an existence with distorted emotions. When others were enjoying life, Econarolia was thinking about destruction. When others were struggling under the threat of the dragons, Econarolia was thinking about destruction. When others were making an alliance with the dragons of the coexistence faction to resist the dragons of the opposition, Econarolia was thinking about destruction. When others were slowly approaching death with the passage of time, Econarolia was also thinking about destruction. Jerv once said that Econarolia undoubtedly had the power to dominate the world, but he only thought about destruction. This sentence could be said to have completely interpreted the essence of Econarolia's existence. Jerv was right. Econarolia was synonymous with destruction. Even if he looked down on humans, was hostile to the dragons, and even hated all life, it was all because Econarolia wanted to enjoy destruction. It was that simple. If in the world of Hakata, Az-Dakaha was the embodiment of evil, then Econarolia was the embodiment of destruction. The difference was that the former's evil was to create a future for humans, while the latter's destruction was just a manifestation of distorted emotions. In any case, Econarolia's journey of destruction had come to an end. It was said that before a person died, they would recall everything that had happened during their lifetime. However, Econarolia didn't have that kind of emotion. He just calmly closed his eyes. The moment his heart stopped beating, he welcomed death in the most calm manner. Just like this, Econarolia's aura completely disappeared. Everyone present, including Long Jun, looked at Econarolia, who was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. From beginning to end, there was no expression on his face, and they looked at each other in dismay. In the next second, oh. Astonishing cheers soared into the sky, carrying the joy of the people, resounding through the night sky. Econarolia's death had caused everyone here to forget about him. It wasn't only Econarolia that threatened this world, but also the dragons flapping their wings in the sky. People hugged each other to celebrate this miraculous victory. Some of them even shed tears of joy. When the dragons descended, these high mages from famous guilds all over the kingdom experienced only infinite panic. When Econarolia descended, everyone present felt a deep sense of despair. However, the despair that the humans could not resist had finally fallen in front of everyone. He was single-handedly defeated by that existence called Noah Doria with 2 swords. Many people looked at the figure holding the silver holy sword and the platinum divine saber, standing in the sea of flames. Reverence and admiration appeared in their eyes, as well as longing and worship. Even Egoniel, Grandine, Metallicana, Boslosaya, and Shigiadora, who were soaring in the sky, were looking at Noah, who was standing on the ground, with endless emotions surging in their hearts. "There's no need to doubt it," Ignir said in a low voice. "This era belongs to the human race." That man proved it. "That's right," Grandine said in an extremely gentle voice. "The era of us dragons has come to an end." Metallicana, Boslosaya, and Shigiadora slowly nodded. Their hearts were actually the same as Econarolia's. There was no sadness, no unwillingness, let alone resentment. There was only inconceivable calmness. Perhaps, this was the state of mind that a transcendent of this era should have? With such a state of mind, Ignir turned his head and looked at the dragons in the sky. His voice resounded through the night sky. "Dragons. Go back. Go back to your era. There's no meaning in fighting. Strife shouldn't happen here. Our world doesn't belong here. It belongs to 400 years ago. Go back. Return this era to humans." These words reverberated in the sky for a long time without calming down. Hearing these words, the dragons were no longer as agitated as before. Instead, they looked at each other, then at Noah, who was standing on the ground with 2 swords in his hands. Undoubtedly, he was quite small, but he gave off a feeling of vastness that no matter what, they couldn't match. They fell into silence. Finally, the dragons raised their heads and roared at the sky. Roar, roar, roar. The roars of the dragons turned into vibrating echoes that rippled under the night sky and spread to the horizon. Immediately, the dragons flapped their wings and flew in the direction of the eclipse gate in groups. When the crowd saw this, they cried tears of joy and cheered once again. Emerald's eyes were also glistening with tears. She watched the dragons disappear in the direction of the eclipse gate with mixed feelings as she softly muttered, "It's over." This sentence was quickly drowned out by the cheers of everyone present. However, Noah heard this sentence in disbelief. He looked at Econarolia's corpse in front of him, lowered his head, and muttered to himself, "Is it over?" As he said this, another figure appeared in Noah's mind. Immediately, Noah's eyes flickered. "No, it's not over yet." When this sentence came out of Noah's mouth, the flow of air suddenly changed. Whang! Amidst a tremor that no one could hear, the entire space suddenly trembled. Then, with Noah as the center, the entire world was dyed in a pitch-black color. At this moment, all the magic shooters who were crying tears of joy and hugging each other froze in space and stopped moving. At this moment, Agnir and the rest of the dragons who were flapping their wings and flying in the air were also frozen in place. That scene was as if time itself had stopped flowing, causing the entire world to be dyed in a pitch-black color. Noah was the only one who was still standing in the same spot as before. Clang! The holy sword and divine saber in Noah's hands blossomed with dazzling radiance, as if they had sensed something, and phosphorescent divine might energy circulated around them. However, Noah did not inject divine might energy into the two elven devices, nor did he waver in the slightest due to the changes in his surroundings. He only slowly turned his head, as if he had expected someone to do all this, and cast a sharp gaze forward. Then, a figure appeared. "You really didn't disappoint me. You really defeated that Econarolia." Jeffrey raised his head and met Noah's sharp gaze with a smile that did not give off any sense of danger. "That's an opponent that even I find a little troublesome. Even I can't kill him." "Of course, Econarolia can't kill me either." "Is that so?" Noah said calmly. "So, you think I can't kill you, so you came to me like this?" "No, it should be the opposite." The smile on Jeffrey's face became tired. "I came to ask you to kill me." Chapter 1732. I'm here to ask you to kill me. Noah fell silent when he heard those words from the fatigued Jerv. Noah's understanding of Jerv had already increased when he obtained the lumen starlight. In the past, Noah's understanding of Jerv had stopped at the level of the most vicious and evil dark mage in history. Apart from that, Noah didn't have any other impression of Jerv. It wasn't until Makarov entrusted him with the lumen starlight that Noah had a whole new understanding of Jerv. The man in front of him was just a pitiful person. He was a pitiful person who tried to die, and his abilities were so great that they involved the realm of God. In the end, he was cursed by God and obtained an immortal body. The curse that would take away the lives of the people around him the more he cherished his life was too cruel for a person. Noah felt that if he were in Jerv's shoes, he would definitely want to die. After all, instead of continuously taking the lives of the innocent people around him, and even the lives of those he cherished, it would be better to just die. Of course, Noah was much luckier than Jerv as he had a physique that would definitely not be cursed. Even God wouldn't be able to impose any curse on Noah, who had transcended the realm of humans and was doted on by thousands of worlds. Unfortunately, Jerv wasn't Noah, and wasn't doted on by the world. It would be better to say that Jerv was abandoned by the world because he was involved in the realm of God as a human, and could no longer integrate into this era. Some people said that ignorance was a sin. However, sometimes, it was also a sin if one's knowledge and talent were too outstanding. Jerv's existence proved that point. However, Noah definitely wouldn't choose to die like Jerv. Hence, Noah only had one kind of emotion towards Jerv. It wasn't sympathy, pity, sarcasm, or mockery. Instead, he was more or less angry. Under the control of his emotions, Noah's gaze on Jerv became sharper and sharper, and he abruptly asked this question. He suddenly asked, "It has been almost 400 years since you were called the most vicious and evil dark mage in history, right?" "Yes, I have indeed lived for 400 years, and belong to the same era as the dragons, Jerv answered honestly after being stunned for a moment. So, I don't belong to this era, either. Just like Akonarolia, I should disappear with the change of era. Just because of this, you're going to borrow my hand? Noah sneered. Do you think I'll agree to that kind of thing? You're not going to agree? Jerv frowned and asked in confusion. Why? Don't you see me as an evil dark mage? The crimes that he had committed up until now could be counted as innumerable, right? You shouldn't mind killing me, right? I won't mind killing you, Noah said indifferently. But, don't you think that's letting you off too easily? Letting me off too easily? Jerv was taken aback. What do you mean? You've said it yourself. You've committed countless sins so far. Not only did you leave behind forbidden spells like Systemar that cost lives, but you've also created many demons that directly and indirectly took away the future and happiness of so many people, Noah said word by word as he stared at Jerv. You've committed so many sins and left behind so much evil, and now you want to die? How can it be that easy? That was the biggest difference between Noah and Jerv. Death is a form of release, but at the same time, it's also a form of escape. Noah said without hesitation. I won't kill you before you redeem yourself for all your sins. Jeffrey fell silent upon hearing this. After a long while, Jerv spoke with an expressionless face. However, if you don't kill me, I will only commit more crimes. As long as I don't die, my existence will continuously rob the future and happiness of the people around me unless I forget the preciousness of life. However, in that situation, I will also rob the lives of others without hesitation as I view life as nothing more than grass. No matter what, my existence will only bring misfortune to others in any form. Jerv looked at Noah with dark emotions surging in his eyes. Even so, you don't intend to kill me? No. If I let you live and allow you to commit even more sins, that would be putting the cart before the horse, Noah said calmly. The question is whether your curse will take away the lives of others when you realize how precious life is, right? As Noah said this, he raised his head and gazed at Jeff. A look that even Jeff couldn't understand appeared in his deep, dark eyes. Then, Noah picked up his pace and walked in Jerv's direction. Looking at Jerv approaching him step by step, Jerv's face was full of doubt, but he didn't show the slightest resistance. He just watched silently as Noah approached and stood in front of him. Noah looked into Jerv's eyes and said, I won't let you take away the lives of innocent people. Even if you're cursed by God. As soon as his voice fell. Poochie. With a tearing sound, the elf device named Demon Slayer penetrated Jerv's heart and came out from his back. Huh. Jerv didn't expect that Noah, who had claimed that he wouldn't kill him just a second ago, would suddenly attack him. His eyes slowly widened, and he looked at Noah with astonishment in his eyes. Under such circumstances, Jerv didn't notice it. The holy sword that penetrated his body didn't bring out a single drop of blood. Just like that, Jerv suddenly felt it. An unimaginable power appeared in his body without any reason, and he went berserk. A deep darkness surged from Jerv's body and turned into a gust of pitch-black wind that swept in all directions. Woo! Ah! Jerv felt as if something in his body was about to explode, causing him to scream in excruciating pain. The darkness that surged from Jerv's body like a swamp rolled wildly and shook the entire pitch-black space. Clang! At this moment, the demon slayer that pierced through Jeffrey's body emitted a dazzling white light. It surged out like a tide and covered the darkness that surged out from Jeffrey's body. Under the dazzling white light of the demon slayer, the thick darkness that surged out of Jeffrey's body started to dissipate bit by bit until it completely disappeared. Noah pulled out the holy sword, causing Jerv to tremble and kneel on the ground as he panted heavily. Geelf was sweating profusely as he panted heavily. He raised his trembling hands and exclaimed in disbelief. The curse on me, I removed it, Noah said matter-of-factly. My Aster has the ability to remove any curse, even if it's a god's curse. Noah's words made Jerv's expression change. There was surprise, doubt, confusion, and even disbelief in his expression. This way, you won't take the lives of others uncontrollably, and you won't have an immortal lifespan. Noah turned his back to Jerv. What you need to do next is to atone for the sins that you've committed in the past 400 years. With that, Noah glanced at Jerv. As long as you live, Li Tianlan said. After saying that, Noah ignored Gerald and slowly walked in the direction of his companions. Chapter 1733. Seeing Noah leave without any hesitation, Jerv's eyes flickered, and he fell into a daze. To make up for the sins left behind in the past. After thinking about it carefully, Jerv realized that he had indeed left behind many things that he had to make up for. In the past 400 years, many of the forbidden magic that Jerv developed had a serious impact on this world. For example, the Paradise Tower incident was a tragedy caused by the forbidden magic left behind by Jerv. In fact, this was not the only thing that had happened in the past. Even Noah didn't know. In fact, the Gate of Time named Eclipse was also something created by Jerv. In other words, even if the culprit behind the appearance of the 10,000 dragons was not Jerv, it was definitely related to him. The arrival of the future Log. The kingdom's princess being used. The plan for the Great Demon Battle Exhibition. These were all indirectly caused by Jerv. In addition to these, Jerv also created many demons. Now, those demons must still be active in every corner of this world, right? Use my lifetime to atone for my sins? Jerv smiled bitterly. However, that smile faintly carried a sense of relief and redemption. Forget it, after struggling meaninglessly for 400 years, maybe it's not bad to live a meaningful life. Without the curse of God, Jerv's lifespan would become limited. How to eliminate the sins left behind in this world in a limited time would become Jerv's homework in the future. And that was not something that Noah could interfere with. On the other side, Noah was still walking in the pitch-black space as if time had stopped. He walked in the direction of his companions. While walking, Noah spoke with a calm expression. What? Still not planning to come out? As the voice fell, a petite figure like a fairy descended from the sky and slowly landed beside Noah. Mavis tilted her head and looked at Noah as she spoke in a serious tone. Is this really okay? Noah naturally understood what Mavis was referring to. Hence, Noah asked in return. Do you think I didn't handle it well? No one can be sure whether Jerv will live to atone for his sins in the future, right? Mavis said after a moment of silence. It is possible that he will continue to wander like before, with the contradictory feelings of respect and contempt for life. Who knows? That's his decision, Noah said without changing his expression. As long as he doesn't make me regret my decision today, that's none of my business. If Jerv spent the rest of his time making up for his sins, that would be the best-case scenario. However, if there came a day when Gerald spent his limited time on the wrong path, Noah would hunt him down no matter where he was. This was Noah's decision. After all, I don't want to fight for the sins he left behind. It's like I'm cleaning up after him. Noah shrugged. So, there's no harm in letting him deal with it himself, right? Mavis was silent. After a while, Mavis sighed. If this is your decision, then I can't say anything. Oh. Noah chuckled. Why? Because right now, you are the president of Fairy Tale, the representative of humans in this era. Mavis closed her eyes and revealed a cute smile. And I am just a departed spirit. I can't interfere with the decisions of the living and affect the development of this era. A departed spirit? Noah couldn't help but laugh. You said it yourself, I'm the guild leader of Fairy Tale. Do you think I don't know that you're still alive? The inexhaustible source of magic lumen starlight. That miracle was built on Mavis' body, which also carried the curse of the god of Ankh. Mavis wasn't truly dead. She was only affected by the curse of the god of Ankh, which was even more powerful than her own. She fell into a dilemma of having her immortal life taken away. This was the so-called state of suspended animation. If Mavis could be revived, Noah could use Aster's power to remove the curse on her body. Then, Mavis would be able to live again. Just like Ankh. Although I don't have the means to save you right now, once I complete my mission, everything will be fine. Noah didn't look at Mavis as he spoke with a hidden meaning. So, do you still insist that you are dead? Hearing this, Mavis didn't say anything. She walked briskly beside Noah with her hands behind her back. She looked at the sky, her gem-like eyes swaying gently like the surface of a lake. The dragon race has already gone extinct, Econarolia has been destroyed by you. Ankh is about to embark on a journey to atone for his sins, and existences that don't belong to this era have their own path of return. If I am revived, then what should I live for? From Mavis's words, Noah could clearly hear a hint of bewilderment. In response, Noah spoke without hesitation. Is there even a need to say it? Of course, it's for the fairy tale. His words caused Mavis to be completely stunned. I will definitely resurrect you. Noah faintly smiled at Mavis, who was staring blankly at him. When the time comes, you will join my guild and live for my guild. Noah's words made Mavis' gem-like eyes shine with a peculiar light. Shortly after, Mavis smiled happily. Yes. The instant Mavis nodded, the pitch-black luster in the surrounding space began to fade away. Time resumed its flow. The sea of fire that had filled the entire Klakasi had gradually extinguished at some point. In the square, the group of high mages raised their heads and looked at the sky. Over there, led by Ignil, Grandini, Medalicana, Baslosaya, and Shigiadora, the dragons floated in the air. They lowered their heads and looked at their children in silence. Gadjalu, Wendy, Sting, and Rog were also looking at their adoptive parents flying in the sky. For a moment, all sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts, and they didn't know what to say. Naz was the only one who kept yelling at Igunal. Ignir. Hurry up and explain yourself. Why did you come out of my body? You are so noisy, Naz. Naz. Igunir roared helplessly, as if he was humiliated. Can't you be any quieter at this time? Who cares what time it is? The more Naz spoke, the angrier he got. I have been looking for you. But you hid in my body. You are too much. That's right. Wendy said with tears in her eyes, feeling wronged. I have also been looking for you, Grandini. I'm sorry, Wendy, Grandini said apologetically. We had no choice. If we didn't hide in your bodies, we wouldn't have been able to extend our lives. Extend our lives? Wendy was startled. Not to mention Wendy, even Naz, Gadjalu, Sting, Roger, and the others opened their eyes wide, and their expressions were completely frozen on the spot. Gadjalu couldn't help but step forward and shout at Medalicana. What is the meaning of this? Medalicana didn't say anything. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Noah beside him before he spoke in a deep voice. I think you should have discovered our state, right? Hearing Medalicana's words, everyone's gazes converged on Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah was silent for a while. After a while, he cast his gaze on the group of dragons. Although I don't know what's going on, I can feel that the life aura in your bodies is constantly draining away. If this continues, you might disappear soon, right? Naz and the others were shocked and stood there in a daze. Chapter 1734. Disappear? The dragons would disappear? Igunal, Grandine, Medalicana, Perlogia, and Shchiadora would all disappear? What kind of joke was this? Grandine. Wendy said with a trembling voice. Is this true? Naz, Gadjalu, Sting, and Rog stared at the dragons who were their adoptive parents, trying to find a trace of a joke from them. Unfortunately, they were destined to be disappointed. That human is right. We are indeed about to disappear, Perlogia said calmly. No, to be more precise, we should have disappeared 400 years ago. 400 years ago, our souls were already taken away by Econarolea's dragon-slaying magic, Shchiadora said calmly. That's why we could only seal all of our remaining power into your bodies to extend your lifespan. Of course, the purpose of doing this is not only to extend your lifespan, but also to prevent you from becoming a dragon like Econarolia because of the dragon-slaying magic. For this reason, we must create antibodies to prevent you from becoming a dragon. After doing this, we only have one last purpose left, Metallicana said as he looked at Econarolia's corpse. That is to defeat Econarolia. When we were at Heavenly Wolf Island, we had already decided to come out of your bodies, but unfortunately, we didn't make it in time. Grandine's voice was still as gentle as ever. Fortunately, you are all safe and sound. Then, we've been waiting for the opportunity to defeat Econarolia. We've been waiting until now. Ignir turned his gaze to Noah. However, it seems that our existence is unnecessary. Even without us, you can rely on your own strength to defeat Econarolia. The potential of humans is indeed limitless. Noah was silent. Naz was still in disbelief. He clenched his fists, his body trembling, and his emotions fluctuating violently. Liar. Wendy's tears finally flowed down. Damn it. Gadgula turned his head and gritted his teeth, suppressing the sadness in his heart. Even Sting and Rog lowered their heads with complicated expressions, not knowing what to do. In this regard, the others could only watch this scene, speechless. The atmosphere in the air suddenly became heavy and sorrowful. Brother Noah. Wendy could only turn her head and grab Noah's clothes as if she was grasping at straws. Can you think of a way to save Grandine? Hearing this, Noah had a bitter expression and shook his head. If their souls were still here, I might have a way. But their souls have already been taken away by Econarolia's dragon-slaying magic, and now they are Will's power. I can't do anything. Not to mention Noah, even Athena, who was in charge of life and death, could not do anything about this situation. After all, the dragons was their power was SSS. They would not be able to survive in this form for long. So, not to mention the current Noah, even if his authority, sovereignty, ability value, and treasury were at their peak, Noah would not be able to do anything about this situation. How? How could this be? Wendy's eyes became wet again. Then what should we do? Father. Naz clenched his teeth, holding back his tears. Do you really have to disappear? Don't feel sad, Naz. Iginal smiled magnanimously. You are no longer a child. You have your own companions and your own family. You have even joined a guild and become an amazing magic shooter. If you can't even bear this kind of parting, how can you call yourself the son of the fire dragon king Igoniel in the future? I am your son. Naz could no longer hold back his tears, but he tried his best not to let his voice carry a sob. No matter what, I am your son. That's right. Iginal laughed out loud, but there was no trace of sadness in his voice. There was only relief that gave everyone unlimited courage. Parting is just a part of life. I will always be by your side and watch you grow. Don't forget this, Naz. Me too. Grandine looked at Wendy gently. I will always be by your side, Wendy. I'm not as gentle as Igunal and Grandine. Metallicana smiled at Gadgelu. But even without me, you can definitely do it, right? Isn't that a given? Gadgelu met Metallicana's gaze and looked over. There was not much sadness on his face. I will definitely live a more exciting life than anyone else. Is that so? Metallicana pursed his lips. I hope your eyes won't be so scary anymore. Boslosaya and Shigiadora did not say much. They just looked at Justin and Logue. Their gazes met, and everything was understood without words. Then, the dragons' bodies began to emit a faint light. Grandine. Wendy cried out with tears flowing down her face. Take care, Wendy, Grandine murmured softly, then looked at Noah and said. I'll leave Wendy to you. Don't worry. Noah nodded heavily. I won't let Wendy get hurt even a little. Only then did Grandine smile with relief. In the faint light, Igunal, Grandine, Metallicana, Boslosaya, and Shigiadora fixed their gazes on their children. Then, their huge bodies turned into light particles and gradually disappeared into the air. Roar, 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 the dragon's roar resounded through the sky as the 5 dragons disappeared, echoing under the night sky. At this point, including Econarolia, the dragons that dominated the entire world 400 years ago had truly retired from the stage. The existence that replaced the dragons and emitted light in this world was the humans. Noah squatted down and hugged Wendy, who buried her head in his arms and cried softly. He looked at the place where the dragons disappeared and did not speak for a long time. On this day, Noah personally ended the legend of Econarolia and changed Jerv's future. At the same time, he also witnessed the final glory of the dragons. However, this was not the only thing that Noah should do. The sky slowly began to brighten. In the palace, in front of the magnificent eclipse gate, a young girl in a black robe stood there, looking at the gate that was engraved with the sun, moon, and stars. Her expression was extremely serene. She looked as if she was reminiscing about something beautiful, and no one could bear to interrupt her. Not long after, Noah walked over with powerful but slow steps and stopped a certain distance away from her. Looking at the young girl in the black robe, Noah did not immediately speak and silently stood there. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew across the scene, raising Noah's robe and the young girl's black robe, causing a faint trace of sadness to appear in the air. Then, the young girl finally spoke. Actually, it is impossible for there to be more than one future phenomenon. The reason why this phenomenon exists is because of this spacetime gate that can change the future. Noah confirmed the young girl's words. Indeed. It was impossible for there to be more than one future. At the very least, it should be like this in this world. There was only one reason why there would be more than one future phenomenon. That was because there was a factor that could change the future. That factor was the eclipse gate. In other words, without the eclipse gate, there would not be more than one future. The young girl was still looking at the spacetime gate as she said, "Now that things have developed to this point, I have finally sorted out some things." In the future Rog's era, Econarolia dominated the entire world. That was the original development of the era, and it was the first future. In the first future, Rog was not willing to be dominated by Econarolia, so he used the eclipse gate to return to 7 years ago, which was my era. He summoned 10,000 dragons and dominated my era, which was the second future. And after the death of my companions, I, who couldn't walk out of the sorrow, also had the idea of changing the future. Through the eclipse gate, I came to the time before Log summoned the dragon, which is the current era, leading to the third future. However, I don't know why, but in this future, you exist. Through your hands, you banished 10,000 dragons and defeated Econarolia, making the future of this era unprecedentedly bright. The future Lucy turned around and looked at Noah with a faint smile. Unfortunately, this is not my future, nor is it my world. Whether it is me or the future Rog, the future that belongs to us still exists. Noah nodded and turned his gaze to the eclipse gate. Noah knew about the future Lucy's plan. That was, to destroy the eclipse gate. Chapter 1735. There was only one future in the first place. However, the eclipse gate, which could travel through time and space, gave people the right to change the future, leading to the appearance of multiple futures. So, if the eclipse that caused all of this was destroyed, what would happen? The result would be that with the destruction of the eclipse as the dividing line, there would be two types of futures, a future with the eclipse and a future without the eclipse. However, the eclipse itself was the factor that caused the appearance of multiple futures. If this factor disappeared, the appearance of multiple futures would become impossible. The eclipse existed in the future of Lucy and Roger, which was why the two of them could come from the future to this era. Once the eclipse was destroyed, the factor that caused the appearance of multiple futures would disappear, and there would be a contradiction between a future with multiple futures and no future with multiple futures. This way, the two types of futures, a future with the eclipse and a future without the eclipse, would conflict with this contradiction. These contradictions and conflicts would cause the timeline to be completely messed up, and it was possible that the world itself would collapse. However, the world would not just sit by and watch this happen. At the very least, Noah was sure that once this happened, the world would repair itself and eliminate this contradiction. So, how could this contradiction be eliminated? It was very simple. Eliminate all of the different futures that appeared because of the eclipse gate. The so-called futures were things that had not happened yet. If something hadn't happened yet, then it shouldn't be possible for it to happen. Therefore, once the eclipse gate was destroyed, all of the futures that had not happened yet would disappear, leaving only this era that was still in progress. In this way, the fact that Lucy's companions died in the future would not appear. Since this was the case, what Lucy wanted to do in the future was already clear. There was only one thing that Lucy did not know about the future. That was, after the eclipse was destroyed, there would be two futures left. One was a future with Noah. The other was a future without Noah. After all, Noah's arrival was not caused by the eclipse gate. Therefore, even if the eclipse gate that caused the appearance of multiple futures disappeared, all of the futures that had not happened yet would be eliminated, leaving behind these two futures. However, the world would probably merge the two futures to prevent this kind of contradiction that caused the timeline to be messed up again. As for the two futures that were merged, it was obvious which one would be the main one. No matter what, the world would not allow the future where Noah existed to disappear, right? In other words, once the eclipse was destroyed, the only era left behind would be the era where Noah existed. The rest of the messy future would disappear along with the destruction of the eclipse portal, including the future Lucy's era, as well as the future Lucy herself. This was the result of the space-time paradox was fixed. Have you really made up your mind? Noah asked quietly. You can also choose to continue living in this era, right? After all, this isn't my world. Future Lucy shook her head. Moreover, there is already me is here. The future Lucy was Lucy, and they were not two completely different people. Therefore, Noah's idea of choosing to continue living in this era was wrong. The reason for that was because the existence by the name of Lucy Hartfilia was still living there. The disappearance of the future Lucy was only returning to the state where she was one with Lucy, not a separate existence by using a different future. Seeing how happy I am with everyone, I really can't wait to return to this era, the future Lucy said from the bottom of her heart. Can you understand? Can you understand? Of course, Noah could understand. The only difference between Lucy and the future Lucy was that the future Lucy had experienced the painful future where all of her companions died tragically. If that future did not exist, then there was no difference between Lucy and the future Lucy. The two of them were originally the same existence. Returning to one with me in this era is what I want to do. The future Lucy looked straight at Noah and smiled. Moreover, I also want to know how it feels to be in the same guild as you. It's not just me, Noah said almost reflexively. Me, you, and everyone else, everyone in the guild is together. Only then will we be a whole. Hearing that, the future Lucy was slightly startled. Then, her expression melted and became gentle. That's right. Being with everyone is my future. The future Lucy said with a natural smile. Then, Noah, can you help me? Noah met the gentle gaze of the future Lucy, smiled, and nodded. Then, under the gaze of the future Lucy, Noah walked towards the eclipse gate step by step. Wang! A surge of mana gushed out from Noah's body. Magic lines that looked like electric wires lit up and covered Noah's arm. Noah slowly approached the solar eclipse door and lifted his head, gazing at the majestic door. Looking at this scene, the future Lucy's eyes were filled with anticipation and hope. However, in the next second, the future Lucy's expression changed drastically as she screamed in fear. Be careful. Almost at the same time as the future Lucy screamed in fear, a figure suddenly burst out from the shadow behind Noah. It raised a hand that was filled with a shocking amount of black gas. It's all because of you. The future I was looking forward to is completely gone. The future rogue roared hysterically. Go to hell. As soon as the words fell, the future rogue's hand that was filled with a shocking amount of black gas was like a sharp spike. It carried a terrifying murderous aura as it pierced through the air and viciously pierced through Noah's heart. Noah acted as if he didn't notice anything and didn't feel any danger. He didn't even seem to hear the future rogue's hysterical roar as he raised his fist towards the grand gate in front of him. Bang! The fist that contained a terrifying amount of power heavily bombarded the grand gate. Amidst a loud, muffled explosion, the tall gate was blasted apart. Just like that, the spatial gate known as solar eclipse exploded, turning into a pile of rubble and rubble. At the same time, a terrifying shockwave suddenly shook with Noah as the center. The shockwave directly hit the future rogue's body and sent the future rogue, who was hysterically attacking Noah, flying. The terrifying shockwave caused the future rogue to spit out a mouthful of blood. His head tilted to the side and he completely fainted. The poor future rogue had meticulously planned for so many years, but in the end, he didn't even have the desire to be dealt with by Noah. Just like that, he was casually swept away by Noah like trash on the side of the road. Then, amidst a thick cloud of dust, the eclipse gate collapsed with a loud bang. The fragments smashed onto the ground one after another, burying the future rogue within. Phew! The future Lucy let out a huge sigh of relief. Soon after, the future Lucy found out. Her body began to emit a faint light. Immediately, the future Lucy raised her head and looked in the direction of Noah. Coincidentally, Noah also turned around and looked at the future Lucy. Then, Noah spoke softly. "See you later." The future Lucy's eyes flickered slightly. Then, an unprecedentedly cheerful smile bloomed on her face. "See you later." After leaving this sentence, the future Lucy's body turned into a burst of light particles and disappeared into the air. In the square, Lucy suddenly felt an inexplicable throbbing in her heart, causing her to look around. "Lucy?" Lisanna noticed Lucy's abnormality and asked in confusion. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Lucy scratched her cheek a little embarrassedly. "Where did Noah go?" "Noah?" Mira tilted her head and replied. "He said he had something to take care of and will be back later." "He'll be back later?" Lucy smiled in relief. "Then, I'll see him later." Although she didn't know why, Lucy really wanted to see Noah now. Really, really wanted to. Chapter 1736. The next day, in the ruins of Kalukas, the residents who had been evacuated by the royal army to seek refuge all returned. Looking at the ruins of Kalukas, the residents naturally stirred up quite a bit of commotion, causing all sorts of rumors to start flying. However, the kingdom was prepared for this situation. They held a public speech and announced the entire incident, suppressing the rumors and stopping the residents from panicking. Only then did the people realize that so many things had happened last night. The dragon race's large-scale attack. In Revelation, the black dragon that destroyed a huge country appeared. The evil sorcerer was behind all this, trying to harm everyone in this world. And all of this was stopped by the sorcerer from the kingdom's major guilds. This was the news that the kingdom announced. As for the details, such as the purpose of the Great Demonic Battle exhibition, the reason for the Eclipse plan, and Princess Emerald's misjudgment, none of them were announced. It wasn't that Emerald didn't want to announce it, but if these things were announced, it would have a huge impact on many things. Just the existence of the Eclipse Gate, which could travel through time and space, belonged to the ranks of forbidden magic, seriously violating the order of the magic world. If the matter of the eclipse was announced, the council would intervene. By then, the kingdom and the council would have a conflict, and it was possible that there would be a huge conflict. In order to prevent this from happening, it was necessary to hide some insider information. However, with such a big incident, the council still sent people to Kurokas to investigate. For all of this, the kingdom would take responsibility and mediate with the council, and it wouldn't involve the major guilds. Therefore, based on the current situation, there shouldn't be any more serious incidents in the future. There were two things worth mentioning. One was Emerald's surrender. Emerald hoped that her misjudgment would lead to a serious threat to the entire kingdom and the world, so she would receive the punishment she deserved to atone for her crime. However, the group of people led by the leader of the Sakura Knights, Alcadios, and the Minister of National Defense, Dayton, knew that Emerald's true purpose of opening the Eclipse Gate was to save the kingdom and the world, but they tried their best to protect her. In the end, Emerald was just being used. Although it couldn't be said that she wasn't at fault, she wouldn't be convicted. Therefore, a group of senior officials who understood Fatsue's good intentions hoped that Fatsue would reconsider. However, Fatsue, who was tortured by guilt, disagreed. She wanted to get the punishment she deserved. In the end, the matter was resolved because of Noah's words. Since everything happened because of you, you shouldn't be thinking about how to punish yourself. Instead, you should be thinking of a way to restore the capital that was destroyed to its original state. Don't tell me you intend to abandon the citizens of Coloccus whose homes were destroyed for the sake of self-satisfaction? This sentence made Fatsue completely speechless. In the end, Emerald took on the responsibility of rebuilding Coloccus. She vowed to rebuild Coloccus in the shortest time possible and return a better capital to the people. At this point, this matter was finally resolved. As for the second thing worth mentioning, it was Noah's matter. Although Fatsue didn't disclose the inside information that wasn't necessary, she didn't hide the credit of Noah, who single-handedly stopped most of the dragons, defeated Akonarolia, and destroyed the future Logue's conspiracy. Instead of hiding anything, Fatsue promoted it vigorously. After releasing 10,000 dragons, Fatsue was already in despair. However, because of Noah's existence, she saw hope. Noah accepted Fatsue's request at that time and fulfilled his promise to protect the Fiori kingdom. Fatsue was very grateful to him for this. Therefore, Fatsue praised Noah's contribution and turned Noah into a perfect hero who saved the country. No one doubted Noah's contribution. This was because, during the Great Demon Battle exhibition, the power that Noah displayed that surpassed the human domain had long been known to the world. Therefore, no one doubted Noah's ability to do all this, including the council. In the end, the council decided to award Noah the title of one of the 10 Saint Magi based on Noah's contribution. The 10 Great Saint Magi were the titles that only the most outstanding and upright 10 Great Saint Magi on the continent could possess. Noah's strength was unquestionable. No one would deny that he was an outstanding sorcerer. And Noah single-handedly stopped most of the dragons, defeated the Black Dragon in Revelation, saved the Fiori kingdom, and saved the entire world. If even such a hero couldn't be called righteous, then what was? Because Noah had once blatantly killed a 10 Saint Magi, the council thought that Noah's conduct might not be as righteous as the rest of the 10 Saint Magi. However, that matter was judged as justifiable self-defense 7 years ago. If they were to bring it up now, they would undoubtedly be suspected of deliberately looking for trouble. In addition, Noah was now a hero who saved the country and received the kingdom's princess's praise and support. His popularity was at its peak. If the council were to say that he wasn't righteous enough, they would probably be spat to death by everyone in the Fiori kingdom and even the entire continent. In the end, the proposal to award Noah the title of 10 Saint Magi was passed. The council personally awarded the title of 10 Saint Magi to Noah in front of all the kingdom's citizens and sorcerers from the guild. They also announced Noah's ranking. First place. He had easily defeated Tura, who was ranked 5th. He had also defeated Acunolia, who had destroyed a huge country in Revelation. All the sorcerers recognized Noah as the most outstanding and powerful sorcerer in the continent. As a result, the council directly listed Noah as the first of the 10 Saint Magi, allowing Noah to sit in this position. Under such circumstances, Makarov simply announced that Noah would be the next guild leader of the guild, causing the reputation of Fairy Tale to soar. After obtaining victory in the Great Magic Battle exhibition, their guild leader was ranked first among the top 10 Saint Magi. The title of the strongest guild in the kingdom of Fiori had once again returned to the hands of Fairy Tale. In order to celebrate Fairy Tale's victory, and also to celebrate Noah becoming the first of the 10 Saint Magi, and also to celebrate the kingdom being saved from a great disaster, Emerald decided to hold a ball. This ball, only the nobles and a few guilds could participate. The list of guilds that could participate was as follows: Saber-Tooth, Lamia Scale, Mermaid heel. Blue Pegasus. Cotter Cerberus. As well as the main character of the ball, Fairy Tale. The location was the only palace that could still be used, and only a part of it was destroyed. In the deep night, the ball was in full swing in the largest hall of the palace. Noah came out of the ballroom and went to the balcony. Looking at the night sky, he gently sighed. Mira also came out of the ballroom, holding Noah's arm and gently wiping his face with a handkerchief. "What's wrong? Are you tired?" "Of course I'm tired," Noah helplessly said. "From the moment I entered until just now, I was constantly being pestered." As the hero who saved the country and the first of the 10 Saint Magi, Noah was very popular among the nobles. Even the king showed his face and thanked Noah. Noah was not unfamiliar with this kind of situation, so it was not difficult for him to deal with it. However, what happened next made Noah really ashamed. They actually suddenly mentioned marriage, and in front of so many people. How afraid are they that their daughters and granddaughters will not be able to get married? Noah was speechless. "And they don't care that I have 2 fiancés, saying that it's okay to be a concubine. Those guys, did they even consider the feelings of their daughters and granddaughters?" Chapter 1737. Noah was indeed speechless. With his current situation, once he entered, the representatives of the royal family would definitely greet him. Noah had expected this. However, Noah did not expect that as they chatted, they would start asking him when he was going to get married and if he had anyone he liked. Then, there was no then. Once this topic started, the situation became unmanageable. All the royal family members were like stall owners in the market, recommending their daughters to Noah. Some even recommended their granddaughters to Noah, as if they were afraid that Noah would not be able to find a wife. When they talked about their daughters, their saliva flew everywhere and almost sprayed on Noah's face. Noah, who did not expect the situation to develop in this direction, was dumbfounded. He then quickly declared that he was a man with 2 fiancées. However, this declaration did not reduce the enthusiasm of the royal family members in the slightest. Instead, it became even more intense. 2. You have 2 fiancées? Then Lord Noah wouldn't mind having a few more, right? Please consider my daughter. Consider my granddaughter as well. It's okay to be a concubine. That's right. These were the first words that appeared after Noah said that he had 2 fiancées. Without a choice, Noah could only surrender and find an excuse to sneak out. If he did not sneak out now, Noah was really afraid that he would be like a salesman. In the end, he would be fooled by those salesmen. You don't say, those so-called royal family members definitely have the potential to be salesmen. Noah was speechless. It's such a waste to be a noble. Pfft. Mira could not help but laugh out loud. This can't be helped. With your current treatment, it's not strange that those royal family members would want to build a good relationship with you. Putting aside the fact that he was the next chairman of Fairy Tale, Noah was now a national hero in the kingdom of Fiori. If they could get close to the heroes who had saved the country, then the status of the royal family would definitely increase exponentially, and they would be sought after by the people. Moreover, Faitsue was grateful to Noah from the bottom of her heart. No matter what request Noah made for her, as long as it was within her ability, Faitsue would not refuse. In this way, Noah was equivalent to the princess's favorite person. Who wouldn't want to take this opportunity to form a good relationship with Noah? On top of that, Noah was currently ranked first among the 10 great holy mages and was publicly recognized as the #1 high mage of the continent. He was also young and unmarried. If such a famous and outstanding person could become a live-in son-in-law, it would make those nobles laugh even in their dreams. For various reasons, Noah had become extremely popular, leading to this situation. Therefore, Mira could understand why there was such a development. However, Noah was puzzled. Why do I feel like you're not talking about your own matters? Noah said to Mira in annoyance. Don't tell me you don't mind me marrying a member of the royal family's younger generation? Upon hearing this, Mira looked at Noah and said with a spurious smile, "Don't worry. If I say that I mind, can you promise me that you won't marry a girl other than me and Lisanna?" Noah was speechless. Noah really could not make this promise. Not to mention other things, Noah did indeed owe a lot of love debts. For example, in the world of The Black Bullet, if Elysium had kept his promise and waited for Noah for 3 years, then no matter how heartless Noah was, he would definitely respond to Elysium's feelings. For example, in the world of The God Slayer, Luo Hao claimed that she was Noah's concubine. Noah had even pushed her down. He couldn't just take advantage of her and not admit to anything, right? In addition, Wendy had once said that she wanted to be Noah's bride when she grew up. Noah's relationship with Shuanai also had a huge breakthrough. Noah could not promise Mira here. Although any man should be satisfied with having Mira and Lisanna, it did not mean that he should turn a blind eye to his own responsibilities. In Noah's opinion, he had to repay the debts he had incurred. What's more, it wasn't that Noah didn't have feelings for those girls. Noah could be said to have gone through thick and thin with Elysium. Even if it could not be said that they shared the same fate, it was impossible for him to be completely indifferent. Toward Luo Hao, Noah could be considered to have made a mistake due to a freak combination of factors. He inexplicably developed a relationship with her, and Noah wouldn't deny this relationship. Noah used to treat Wendy as a younger sister, but ever since he knew that Wendy had feelings for him, Noah felt that he had to face Wendy directly. Therefore, it was not impossible for him to have a relationship with Wendy in the future. As for Shuanai, Noah was very touched to a large extent. Think about it, an 11 or 12-year-old girl persisted for 7 whole years in order to pursue the figure of the person she yearned for, and even suffered a lot during that time. As a person who was yearned for by such a girl, who would not feel touched? At the very least, Noah was moved by Shuanai, and he had great affection for her. Then, in the dragon graveyard, he made a breakthrough in his relationship with Shuanai, which made his love for her sublimate. As such, no matter what, Noah did not want to let down that girl's feelings for him. Thus, between being unemotional and being affectionate, Noah chose the latter in the end. Under such circumstances, Noah could only look resentful. He sighed and hugged Myra's shoulder, bringing her into his embrace. Mira did not resist Noah and instead obediently snuggled into Noah's embrace. The gentleness on her face did not change at all. Noah smelled his fiancée's fragrance and said softly, "I'm sorry. I've made you suffer." "No," Mira shook her head and said gently, "You didn't make me suffer. You didn't make me feel wronged. Rather, you gave me a lot of happiness. There's no reason for you to apologize. I can't even give you a promise. Don't you feel wronged?" Noah said. "I know that you and Lisanna have been thinking about me and have been accommodating me in this aspect. So, I can only promise that I'll make you happy. That's enough." Mira stretched out her hand and hugged Noah's waist. She closed her eyes and enjoyed the warmth of her lover, smiling sweetly. "This is the promise I want the most. This promise is enough. Is that so?" Noah smiled and closed his eyes as well, pressing his face against Myra's head. "Thank you." Mira did not say anything else. Instead, she wholeheartedly enjoyed the warmth of her lover. The smile on her face was filled with happiness no matter how one looked at it. Just as Noah and Mira were being affectionate, in the corner of the balcony, in front of the wall, 2 girls were secretly hiding. They had clearly heard Noah and Myra's conversation. The 2 girls showed completely different emotions. One of them showed that they approved of him. The other showed gratitude. The former was like Mira, Noah's future bride, Lisanna. The latter was Suno. Holding Suno's hand tightly, Lisanna seemed to be talking to herself as she leaned against the wall and said, "I'm the same with big sister Mira." In other words, Lisanna did not need Noah to make any promises. She only needed a promise of happiness. That was enough. The reason why Lisanna brought this up was undoubtedly to hint at something to Suno. "Although it's really infuriating to let that bastard off easy," Lisanna giggled. "That's why I must make that bastard compensate me for the rest of my life." Not only did Suno not feel worried for Noah, but she also felt envious of Lisanna. Noticing the envy in Suno's eyes, Lisanna puffed up her cheeks and said, "I've already decided to let that bastard compensate me for the rest of my life. If anyone wants to let him off easy, they'll have to act quickly. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll regret it." Xuanai's pretty face immediately turned red. However, looking at Noah and Mira hugging each other under the moonlight, Suno mustered her courage. Chapter 1738. After that, Noah returned to the ballroom and continued to feign civility with the nobles. It couldn't be helped. The main character of this ball could be said to be Noah. No matter what, Noah couldn't be absent all the time, could he? However, in order to prevent the nobles from proposing marriage to him, Noah had Mira accompany him all the time. Seeing a charming girl by Noah's side, no matter how thick-skinned those nobles were, they wouldn't propose marriage to Noah in front of Mira. Thus, Noah could finally relax and enjoy the ball. During the process, in addition to the nobles, Noah also greeted the high mages of the various guilds. Basically, the only guilds that could participate in this ball hosted by the kingdom were those that had participated in the Great Demon Battle exhibition and stayed in Kalokas to fight against the dragon race. And in these guilds, there were many people that Noah was familiar with, so it was necessary to greet them. Among them, Kara, who belonged to the Lamia scale, mentioned to Noah that she hoped to spar with him again in the future. Even Kagura, who belonged to the mermaid heel, expressed that she wanted to spar with Noah. At the beginning, Kara and Kagura were the two most powerful archmages in this year's Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition tournament. After understanding how terrifying Noah's true strength was, both of them developed a sense of competition. However, rather than saying that it was a sense of competition, it was better to say that the two just wanted to reduce the gap between them and the strongest high mage in the continent as much as possible. As for the other guilds, such as the high mages of the Blue Pegasus and Cotter Cerberus, Noah also greeted them. After all, after returning to Magnolia, Noah would take over the position of the guild leader. It was necessary to have a good relationship with the other guilds. It was worth mentioning that before this, Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga, who belonged to the Saber-Tooth, took the initiative to greet Noah. According to Sting, after this year's Great Demon Battle exhibition and the invasion of the dragons, they had already deeply understood just how lacking they were. Previously, they claimed to be the strongest and were proud of it. Now that they thought about it, it felt like a joke. So, Sting and the others planned to turn over a new leaf and start training themselves again, hoping that one day they would be able to spar with the fairy tale again. After returning, Sting would be the same as Noah, the leader of the Saber-Tooth. Therefore, Sting sincerely hoped to have a good relationship with Noah and learn from Noah. He wanted to change the Saber-Tooth that was dominated by terrorism in the past and try to be like Noah and the others. As for Germain and Maniba, after the Great Demon Battle exhibition ended, the two directly left the Saber-Tooth. It was said that when Sting and the others felt that they were inadequate, Germain and Maniba were still immersed in the glory of being the strongest guild, sinking deeper and deeper. After that, the two sides directly clashed and even fought over it. In the end, Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga defeated Germain and Maniba, proving their will. Germain, who felt that she had no face to stay, left the guild without saying goodbye to Maniba. Actually, the young mistress is also very pitiful. The reason she became like this is because she was abused by Germain since she was young. Germain has always instilled the young mistress with the concept of being the strongest, and in order to not let the young mistress lose face, he strictly and cruelly demanded that she become stronger. That's why the young mistress became like this. Noah still remembered that at that time, Sting said these words to him with a serious face. I think that the young mistress' nature is actually not bad, so when we return, I will immediately send people to find the young mistress' whereabouts and try to make her come back and feel the warmth of the guild. As for Germain, that person is hopeless. Instead of letting him continue to harm others in the guild, I would rather he never come back. That person, let him fend for himself. After leaving these words, Sting led the Saber-Tooth archmages out of Noah's sight and greeted the people of the other guilds. From this, Noah could see A brand new saber-tooth was about to be born. The ball lasted until late into the night and only ended at dawn. Because Crocus was being rebuilt, the only place where people could stay was the palace. Emerald allowed the archmages of the various guilds to stay for the night and leave the next day. The various guilds accepted Emerald's kindness. Thus, under Emerald's arrangement, the various guilds were led by their attendants to their own residences. Noah was arranged to stay in the best guest room in the palace. It was an elegant room like a luxurious suite. This room, until dawn, belonged to Noah alone. Thus, once he returned to the room and waited for the attendants to leave, Noah immediately planned to take off his formal attire, lie on the bed, and have a good sleep. However, before Noah could take off his formal attire, there was a knock on the door. Then, a voice full of nervousness rang out. Lord Noah, Shwenai. Noah immediately recognized the owner of the voice and spoke directly. Come in. My apologies. Shwenai's voice was still tinged with nervousness. Moreover, Shwenai did not come in immediately. Instead, after Noah could not help but feel suspicious, she mustered up her courage and pushed the door open. The one who appeared at the door was, of course, Shwenai. However, at this moment, Shwenai was wearing a formal attire like Noah. Noah was wearing a black tuxedo. Shwenai was wearing a white princess dress. If the two of them stood together, they would definitely look like a prince and a princess, right? In addition, on Shwenai's head, there was also a flower, which looked quite beautiful. Perhaps she did not think that she was that beautiful in person. After all, Shwenai had an inferiority complex in her personality. However, Noah still wanted to say that in terms of appearance, Shwenai was really very outstanding. In fact, Noah could not help but take a few more glances at Shwenai. Noticing Noah's gaze, Shwenai's face flushed red. Her hands were hanging in front of her body as she tugged at her skirt nervously. Her strength was so great that one was worried that Shwenai would tear her skirt apart. Noah smiled and took the initiative to break the silence. Since you're here, don't stand outside the door. Hurry and come in. Oh. Okay. Shwenai's voice was still filled with nervousness as she walked in with messy footsteps. At this moment, Noah felt a little strange. Why did it feel like Shwenai was overly nervous? What's wrong? Noah asked curiously. Is there something wrong? Shwenai did not answer immediately. Instead, she looked even more nervous as she tugged at her skirt continuously. Her face was getting redder and redder. Seeing this, Noah could not help but speak. Stop tugging, or it will really tear. Shwenai finally realized that she had been tugging at her skirt and quickly let go. However, because the movement was too big, Shwenai's high heels twisted. Ah! Shwenai suddenly exclaimed as she fell down. Noah was shocked and hurriedly stepped forward. With a soft bang, he directly hugged Shwenai. You little girl. Noah said in a reproachful tone. What are you doing? Shwenai looked at Noah, who was holding her in his arms. Her face was extremely red as though it was cooked. However, in the next second, Shwenai's face was red as she closed her eyes. She reached out and hugged Noah with trembling hands. Noah was stunned. Master Noah. Shwenai's body was trembling as she closed her eyes tightly and spoke extremely nervously. Do you still remember the promise in the dragon graveyard? Shwenai's words made Noah shudder on the spot. The promise in the dragon graveyard? Could it be that she was referring to that promise? Chapter 1739. All of a sudden, the atmosphere in the room seemed to have turned pink, and the temperature seemed to have risen a little. Noah could clearly feel the trembling of her body as he hugged the beautiful girl in his arms and looked at her blushing face, yet still mustering her courage. However, it wasn't fear, but nervousness. It was imaginable how much courage Shwenai had mustered to come to Noah's room and take the initiative to mention the agreement in the dragon graveyard. Hence, Noah stretched out his hand and stroked Xuanai's slender and smooth back. He moved his mouth close to Xuanai's ear and whispered, "Have you really made up your mind?" Xuanai's trembling eased a little under Noah's comforting touch. However, the blush on her face didn't subside at all. Under such circumstances, Xuanai didn't even dare to lift her head to look at Noah. She only snuggled up in Noah's arms and nodded shyly. That movement seemed extremely gentle. If Noah's gaze hadn't been fixed on Xuanai's body, he wouldn't have noticed that movement at all, right? However, not only did Xuanai's behavior not weaken her charm, but it also aroused his appetite. Under the control of his emotions, Noah hugged Xuanai with more force as though he wanted to rub the girl in his arms into his body. He hugged Xuanai tightly. Due to the thick coat that Xuanai usually wore, it was difficult to see how good her figure was with the naked eye. Today, Xuanai was wearing a princess dress, which accentuated her good figure. Noah, who hugged Xuanai tightly, could clearly feel the softness and fullness of the girl's body in his arms. Hence, Noah said in the end, "If you want to go back on your words, it's still not too late." Xuanai didn't say anything. She only buried her head in Noah's arms with a blushing face. Due to her nervousness, she hugged Noah tighter and tighter, silently expressing her determination. Now, what reason did Noah have to reject her? Amidst Xuanai's exclamation, Noah abruptly carried the girl in his arms in a princess carry and threw her directly onto the bed. With another cry of surprise, a pure white princess dress was thrown into the air and fell to the ground. Not long after, Noah's black tuxedo also landed on the ground. A sleepless night had just begun. The sky gradually brightened up. Outside the windows of the luxurious suite, the warm sun shone into the room and onto the red-carpeted floor. There, pitch-black and pure white gowns were scattered all over the ground, but they didn't give off a dirty and messy feeling. Instead, they seemed especially warm. Noah opened his eyes in a daze, and his consciousness began to gradually wake up. Almost instinctively, Noah reached out his hand and subconsciously wanted to hug the girl who was lying in his arms before he fell asleep last night. However, when he reached out his hand, Noah hugged nothing, which made him slightly startled and his mind instantly woke up. When he woke up, Noah realized that, other than himself, the girl who was supposed to be present was nowhere to be seen, leaving only Noah lying in bed. Xuanai? Noah was a little surprised and puzzled as he sat up. At this moment, the door was pushed open. Outside the door, Xuanai, who had already dressed neatly and changed into her usual clothes, slowly walked in with breakfast in her hands. After seeing Noah get up, she was first surprised for a moment, then her pretty face blushed slightly. She lowered her head like a small animal and said shyly, "Noah." "Master Noah, Xuanai." Noah breathed a sigh of relief without a trace and then put on a straight face. "Where did you go?" I went to help Master Noah prepare breakfast." Xuanai still lowered her head and said softly, "However, the palace is too big and I don't know where the kitchen is. It took me a lot of effort to find a servant in the palace to lead the way, so I wasted a lot of time. Are you going to help me prepare breakfast?" Noah scratched his cheek. "Can't you just leave that kind of thing to the servants in the palace?" But I want to prepare breakfast for Master Noah." Xuanai looked up uneasily and secretly looked at Noah. Can't I?" Looking at Xuanai's uneasy look, Noah couldn't help but pat his forehead and scold himself in his heart. For this girl who had low self-esteem, after last night's entanglement, she would definitely have all kinds of uneasiness. Noah could even imagine the scene where Xuanai tried her best to serve him well so that he wouldn't hate her. In this way, if Noah showed even the slightest bit of resistance to Xuanai's good intentions, it would only make her more uneasy. Noah hurriedly said, "No, I haven't tried breakfast made by Xuanai yet, but I'm looking forward to it." Is that so?" Xuanai breathed a sigh of relief, but then became nervous again. "But I'm not sure if it's to your liking." "I'm not picky about food, so why would it be to my liking?" Noah laughed out loud. "Anyway, since you've already made it, bring it over. Xuanai's expression became a little more cheerful as she nodded repeatedly and brought the breakfast to the bedside. After placing it on the bedside, she said to Noah. Then, let me help Master Noah put on his clothes first. She wants to serve me even while putting on my clothes? Well, it wasn't like Noah hadn't been served like this before. Mira and Lisanna often helped Noah like this before, so there was nothing to resist. Thus, Noah very straightforwardly lifted the blanket and got off the bed. Seeing that Noah didn't avoid arousing suspicion and was completely naked, Xuanai's pretty face turned red with a bang. Seeing this, Noah was amused. It's not like I haven't seen it before, why are you so shy? Master Noah. Xuanai immediately became even more bashful. That delicate appearance made Noah have the feeling of having an appetite for her again. However, now wasn't the time to be lovey-dovey here. Today was the day to prepare to return to Magnolia. So, the rest of the guild members should have gotten up one after another and would be leaving soon. If he turned into a beast here and wasted time, Mira and Lisanna would definitely come over, and the rest of the guild members might also come looking for Noah. When the time came, Noah's perfect image would be completely ruined if he was surrounded by a crowd. Alright, aren't you going to help me put on my clothes? Noah said teasingly. If you don't hurry up, there will really be people coming to watch later. Xuanai's pretty face turned red, but she still obediently took out Noah's clothes and walked in the direction of Noah. Outside the palace, a group of sorcerers belonging to Fairy Tale had gathered together, each of them carrying some luggage. Emerald stood in front of everyone with Alcardios. Facing Noah's direction, Emerald bowed and saluted. Although I have said it many times, Master Noah, thank you very much for saving this country. Otherwise, I would really be unforgivable. I was just doing what I wanted to do. What I wanted to save was not this country, but my companions. Noah shook his head. So, Your Highness, there is no need to continue expressing your gratitude to me. Even so, the fact that Master Noah saved all of us still exists. Emerald said very seriously. I will always remember Master's kindness in my heart. I will never forget it. After that, Fei Chui looked at everyone and thanked them solemnly. At the same time, I would also like to thank everyone for lending a helping hand when this country was in trouble. If there is anything you need me for in the future, please do not hesitate to ask. When the time comes, I will definitely do my best. To be able to receive such a promise from Your Highness, we are already very honored. Makarov nodded heavily. Then, we will take our leave. Makarov looked at Noah. Noah smiled and turned his head to look at everyone present. All right. Everyone. Let's go home. Everyone responded loudly, their faces beaming with joy. And so, under the gaze of Emerald and the others, everyone stepped on the road back to Magnolia. Chapter 1740. Fiori Kingdom, Magnolia. Look. That's the sorcerer from Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale is back. You're back. When the group of magic shooters from Fairy Tale walked into Magnolia, all the residents on the streets were surprised and cheered loudly, giving the returning magic shooters a fright. Then, many residents rushed out from the buildings and streets, surrounding both sides and cheering loudly. Oh! Cheers resounded throughout the entire space, causing the group of Fairy Tale's magic shooters to come to their senses. Then, such noises rang out from all directions. Good job. Fairy Tale. He actually saved the kingdom. Good job. You are the glory of Magnolia. Congratulations to all of you for winning the Great Demon Battle Exhibition Tournament. Congratulations. Cheers echoed throughout the crowd, telling the members of Fairy Tale what was going on. The residents of Magnolia swarmed over and surrounded the two sides of the street, cheering loudly. Makeo, Wakaba, and the other members who had stayed behind for 7 years were moved to tears. I never thought that after 7 years, would be able to enjoy this feeling of being supported again. Exactly. In the 7 years that the main members had been frozen together with Heavenly Wolf Island, when had Fairy Tale ever been so popular? The glory of Fairy Tale, which was always at the bottom every year, had long been forgotten by the people after 7 years. All that was left was pity and contempt. Today, Fairy Tale had finally returned to the #1 stage of the kingdom, becoming the glory of Magnolia once again. After 7 years of glory, the members who had stayed behind for 7 years were moved. At the sight of such a group of old members, Noah and the others exchanged glances with each other before revealing a smile. Everyone, Noah stepped forward and said to the members who had stayed behind for 7 years. "Thank you for your hard work." The group of members who had stayed behind wiped their noses. If they didn't do this, they would have snot flowing out of their noses. The ordeal is over. Now, we only need to enjoy the rewards of our hard work. Noah clapped his hands and smiled. It's rare to hear cheers. Let's enjoy this glory and go home. The group of Fairy Tale magic shooters raised their hands and cheered loudly. Then, amidst the cheers of the residents of Magnolia, the group of magic shooters waved at the surrounding residents and slowly walked towards the direction of the Fairy Tale as if they were on a parade. The cheers lasted until they reached Fairy Tale's guild building. When they arrived at the entrance of the guild building, the residents of Magnolia dispersed reluctantly and allowed them to return home. Looking at the castle-like building, Xuanai muttered, "Is this the Fairy Tale?" Although she had joined Fairy Tale, this was the first time Xuanai came to the building and saw what it looked like. When she thought about how this was Noah's home since he was young, Xuanai felt excited and complicated. If it weren't for the fact that she had mistaken Noah's guild, Xuanai would have joined the guild when she was young. In the end, fate played a trick on her. Xuanai was delayed for 7 years before she finally came to the guild where the person she longed to be. Looking at the majestic guild building, how could Xuanai not feel excited and complicated? What's wrong? Why do you look like you're about to cry? She held Xuanai's hand and poked her cheeks. This is where you'll be staying for the rest of your life. You can't always look like that. I know. Xuanai suppressed her complicated feelings and looked at the building again. I just feel like I'm dreaming. When she heard that Noah was killed by Aconarolia on Celestial Wolf Island, Xuanai thought that she would never be able to fulfill her little dream of joining the same guild as the person she longed to be. Now that her dream had come true, Xuanai felt like she was dreaming. This isn't a dream. Mira held Xuanai's other hand with a smile that could heal her heart. We'll always be together from now on. Yes. Xuanai nodded heavily. His expression was happier than ever. Noah, who had been observing the direction of Xuanai, could not help but laugh softly. Soon after, he said to everyone, "Don't just stand there, let's go in." Hearing this, everyone looked at each other, and in the end, they all rushed towards the guild together. Bang! Leading the way, Naz kicked open the door and roared as he rushed in. Sure enough, the guild is the best. Bastard! Makarov yelled in exasperation. Doors aren't meant to be kicked. However, the guild members who were in a state of excitement had already ignored Makarov's words and rushed into the guild one after another. We're finally back. The banquet is starting. The banquet is starting. Hurry up and bring the wine. And the meat. Mira. Lisanna. Hurry up. Both Mira and Lisanna could only smile helplessly. Coming. Don't rush us. The two girls entered the guild and under the support of the guild members, they entered the bar counter and began to prepare the wine and dishes. Those guys. Noah was also helpless. Xuanai, on the other hand, was at a loss as if she didn't know what to do. Seeing this, Noah shrugged and said meaningfully, "Once those guys start making trouble, there's no end to it. I don't know if Mira and Lisanna can handle it." Hearing this, Xuanai immediately understood. I'll go help too. After saying that, Xuanai hurriedly ran in the direction of Mira and Lisanna. In the blink of an eye, only Noah was left standing in front of the guild's door. Looking at the noisy guild members, Noah's gaze swept across his companions and family members one by one. Naz was quarreling with Gray. Gadgelo actually ran to the stage to play the guitar. Wendy, on the other hand, was hugging Xia Lulu and whispering to her, her face full of smiles. Noah couldn't help but feel a little relieved when he saw that. Have you finally gotten over the departure of Egoniel, Grantigny, and Metallicana? After the dragons left, Naz, Gadgelo, and Wendy fell into a depressed state for a while. However, now, the three of them had finally returned to their normal state and were not as sad as before. Everyone is moving forward with real growth. We are not staying in the same place. Noah turned his head and cast his gaze at Mira, Lisanna, and Xuanai, who were chatting and laughing at the bar counter. He silently made up his mind. I should also fulfill my promise. With this thought, Noah lifted his foot, stepped into the guild, and spoke loudly. Everyone. Quiet down. I have something to say to you. The entire guild suddenly fell silent. Everyone cast their gaze on Noah. Including Mira, Lisanna, and Xuanai. Under everyone's gaze, Noah scratched his cheek and declared. I hope everyone can come to my wedding in a week's time. Everyone's eyes widened. Mira and Lisanna were even more stunned. Then, their eyes lit up. Chapter 1741. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Shortly after, a shocking commotion broke out. Wedding? Does that mean Noah is finally planning to marry Mira and Lisanna? It's not a plan, it's a fact, right? Speaking of which, before the start of the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, Noah did say that he would marry Mira and Lisanna-chan after the competition. In other words, it's time to fulfill that promise, right? Damn it. Mira is finally going to become Noah's property? Woo-woo. Mira, the entire guild was in an uproar. It was so noisy that everyone's eardrums started to hurt. Mira and Lisanna were pleasantly surprised, but just as their companions said, this matter was already decided long ago, so there was nothing to make a fuss about. However, at this time, Mira and Lisanna were still very happy, the expressions on their faces almost melting. Congratulations, Lord Mira and Lord Lisanna. Snow was sincerely happy for Mira and Lisanna. You can finally marry Lord Noah. Thank you. The smiles on Mira and Lisanna's faces were several times brighter than usual. They looked very beautiful. At this time, Noah was surrounded by his companions. A week? Isn't that a bit too rushed? Gray said. Just preparing for the wedding will take a long time, not to mention that you seem to be preparing to find a new house. Will that be enough time? Although it is a bit rushed, a week is more than enough. Noah already had a plan, so his reply was very smooth. No matter what, our guild has already reclaimed the throne of number 1 in the kingdom of Fiore, and we have even protected the kingdom. Now is the time for us to make a name for ourselves. I believe that before long, many new members will join our guild, and the number of requests will increase as well. When the time comes, we might not have the time to prepare for the wedding. So, you want to take advantage of this time to prepare for the wedding? Gray nodded in realization. Indeed, in that case, we have no choice but to hurry up and finish the wedding. But, Elusha muttered in a bashful voice. I'm not mentally prepared yet. With this reaction, I don't even want to comment anymore. Lucy sighed while holding her forehead. It's not like Elusha is getting married. Why do you need to be mentally prepared? I wasn't mentally prepared either. Wendy's pretty face was slightly red, but she clenched her small fists and spoke with an expression of effort. However, I will start preparing myself mentally now. When I grow up, it will be just right. Just enough? Naz asked curiously. What can I do? Hearing this, Noah felt a little guilty. If his companions in the guild knew that even Wendy was planning to marry him in the future, how would they look at him? Thinking of this, Noah quickly changed the topic. Moreover, after the wedding, I have some matters to attend to. At that time, I will be away for about a month. Before the guild becomes busy, I have to hurry up and finish the wedding. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Noah. Leave for a month? Elisha asked in surprise. Now, is there anything that requires you to spend an entire month to settle? Although the rest did not speak, they had the same surprise as Elisha. After all, Noah was the first of the 10 great Saint Magus masters and was recognized as the #1 magic shooter in the continent. He was an existence that could single-handedly block a Conarolia and 10,000 WIRMS. With such a degree of power, what else would require Noah to spend so much time to settle? Noah naturally understood the doubts of his companions. However, Noah did not say it directly. Instead, he smiled faintly. Why? Are you guys still worried that something will happen to me? No, it's not to that extent. Gray folded his arms and looked straight at Noah. I just want to say that if there's anything that you need our help with, you can leave it to us. The rest nodded and expressed their agreement. Well, no matter what, you're now the president. You can't let the president solve everything, right? Lucy also said kindly. If it's something that we can handle, then it's better to leave it to us. Hearing everyone's words, Noah felt a little warm in his heart. Thus, Noah said so. All right, it's not a big deal. I'll definitely be able to handle it. Noah spread his hands. However, before that, I want to complete the agreement that I've made so that I won't have any regrets in the future. At this point, Noah suddenly smiled. Of course, the agreement I'm referring to is not only to marry the person I love. Not only to marry the person you love? Everyone was stunned. Noah turned his gaze and looked in Naz's direction. His dark and deep eyes flashed with some light. What? Naz suddenly felt strange. Why are you looking at me like that? Naz. The corners of Noah's mouth slowly raised. Do you still remember the agreement that we had to fight after we became S-rank archmages together? This sentence made Naz's pair of eyes light up. The rest of Noah's companions more or less understood what Noah meant, and they were all surprised. Since then, it has been 7 years in this era. Noah looked at Naz closely. Although none of us became S-rank archmages, I directly became one of the 10 great saint archmages and succeeded the position of president. After your cultivation, your strength has also increased to the point where you can become an S-rank archmage. Now, it's time to fulfill the original agreement. Naz's eyes suddenly became serious, and he grinned with excitement and hot-bloodedness. In other words, Noah, are you finally going to fight with me? Of course, not now. Noah smiled slightly and said so. The time is set to be after my wedding and before I leave. After the wedding, before leaving. Naz lowered his head and considered with an unprecedentedly serious expression. At this time, Naz stretched out one hand and grabbed his other arm tightly. A smile appeared on his face. Well, I also need some time to prepare. Naz's words surprised the surrounding companions. When did Naz prepare for a duel? But this time, Naz actually said that he needed time to prepare? What did this prove? It proved how serious Naz was about this duel. Noah, on the other hand, stared at Naz's right arm that was tightly gripped by his hand with a meaningful gaze. Naz was naturally very serious about this duel. However, if he needed time to prepare, did it mean that Naz had some hidden cards? As soon as this idea appeared, it had to be said that even Noah began to look forward to it. So, Noah made a prompt announcement. Well, before I leave, let's have a good fight. Yo! I'm burning. Naz laughed out loud and rushed in the direction of the door. In that case, I have to hurry up and prepare, hubby. Isaac. Habby immediately flapped the wings on his back and shot out like an arrow, catching up to Naz. In the next second, Naz and hubby rushed out of the guild and soon disappeared without a trace. Until then, the crowd was in an uproar. The duel between Noah and Naz? Who will win? For that kind of thing, it's obvious that Noah will win. That's true, his companions in the guild were noisy like this. Only Alusha and Gray stared in the direction where Naz left, and their expressions were not very relaxed. Hey, Noah, you have to be careful, Gray said. That guy actually said that he needed to prepare, he must be hiding something. I have a feeling, Alusha said the same. Your duel with Naz will definitely not be as predictable as everyone said. I understand. Noah looked in the direction where Naz disappeared, and his eyes flickered. I know better than any of you that Naz is definitely not an opponent to be underestimated. Chapter 1742. In the end, because of the marriage and the duel happening at the same time to Noah, the entire guild was in an uproar from morning till night. Of course, even if nothing happened, the guild would always be this lively. However, with the marriage and the duel happening, the guild was undoubtedly several times livelier than usual. In Noah's opinion, his companions in the guild were actually a bunch of excited people who wanted to see the world in chaos. That was why the whole guild became so noisy after Noah announced these two things. As for Makarov, after Noah announced that he was going to get married in a week, he downed a few barrels of wine. Noah didn't know what Makarov's stomach was made of to drink like that, but Noah also knew that Makarov was just too happy. His grandson was finally going to get married. As a grandfather, how could Makarov not be happy? Hence, after downing a few barrels of wine, Makarov looked for Noah again, patted his chest, and said this. Aren't you going to look for a wedding house? Leave this matter to me. After leaving this sentence, Makarov directly slipped away and disappeared. Later, Noah found out that Makarov had dug out all his savings and spent a lot of money to buy a relatively luxurious house. That house was the wedding house that Makarov was going to give to Noah. Originally, Noah had planned to rely on his current reputation to find the most difficult and most rewarding task. After obtaining it, he would use the reward to buy a house and prepare for the wedding. Now, since Makarov had taken care of the task of finding a house, Noah's only task left was to prepare for the wedding. However, regarding the wedding preparation, Mira and Lisanna had taken care of everything. You are now the guild leader. There are many things in the guild waiting for you to do. Mira said gently to Noah. So, about the wedding preparation, let us do it. I have been wanting to have a wedding for a long time. I have many ideas in my mind. Lisanna said with a face full of excitement. Brother Noah, you can't fight with me, okay? Seeing that Mira and Lisanna were eager, Noah didn't want to dampen their spirits. He could only find Shwenai and discuss the wedding with her. Noah came back to finish all the things that needed to be done and not leave himself with any regrets. Thus, the matter of Fairy Tale becoming the #1 guild in the kingdom of Fiore had to be dealt with. The wedding of Mira and Lisanna had to be dealt with, and the duel with Naz also had to be dealt with. Naturally, after the breakthrough in his relationship with Shwenai, Noah couldn't ignore Shwenai. In other words, Noah planned to let Yuno marry him and become his bride. Who knew? Regarding this matter, Shwenai expressed the greatest degree of all. You can't. Lord Noah. Shwenai said a bit anxiously to Noah. Lord Mira and Lord Lisanna have already discussed the marriage with you for so long. Only now did they finally get what they wanted. How can I casually butt in? It seemed that Shwenai thought that if he, a person who came out of nowhere, suddenly but in Noah, Mira and Lisanna's wedding, then he would definitely be guilty of the most heinous crime. As long as I can be together with Lord Noah, I am already very satisfied. Shwenai said to Noah in a pleading manner. So, Lord Noah, I beg you, please don't let me butt in at this time. Noah could tell that Shwenai was truly against this matter. It wasn't because Shwenai had low self-esteem, believing that with her status, she shouldn't marry Noah. Instead, she believed that she was someone who came out of nowhere. If she married Noah at the same time as Mira and Lisanna, then it really was too appropriate. Since Shwenai was so against it, there was nothing Noah could do. He could only helplessly agree to Shwenai's pleas and inwardly promise. It won't be too late to marry Xuanai after everything is settled. In any case, in the other worlds, the Elysian Sun and Luo Hao were also waiting for Noah. When the time came, he would capture all of these girls in one fell swoop and drag them into the church. That would be enough. This thought became the most shameless thought in Noah's life. However, it had to be said that this was indeed Noah's heartfelt words. As such, everything was decided. All that was left was to take action. Because everything that needed to be done was taken care of by others, Noah instead became the most idle person. He was idle all the way until night time. After everyone left the guild and the doors were closed, Noah returned to his room and lay down on his bed. Clang! At the next moment, a series of dazzling silver light and resplendent platinum light bloomed from Noah's back at the same time. They turned into a series of light particles and condensed into two elven young ladies with silver hair that was as gentle and beautiful as moonlight. The moment they appeared, Athena spoke indifferently. Finally, you're almost done with the things that you need to do in this world. Yes. Noah closed his eyes. However, it's not time to leave yet. You seem to be looking forward to the wedding with those two girls, Athena said expressionlessly. You're my destined person. You're the one who's about to enter the battlefield. What? Noah didn't open his eyes. Do you want to say that you're against my wedding with Mila and Lisanna? I don't have such thoughts. A beautiful wife waiting for you at home is the best way to encourage a warrior. Once a man thinks of having a wife waiting for him at home, no matter who it is, they will explode with a strong survival instinct. Athena glanced at Noah. I just want to remind you. Don't forget that you can't slack off because of the life that you're looking forward to. You don't need to say this. I understand. Noah finally opened his eyes and looked at the ceiling. I just don't want to leave behind any regrets. Noah's words elicited a reaction from Aster, who had been silent the whole time. Not only this world. Aster's mysterious eyes turned to Noah. Master also wants to go to other worlds and work hard to not leave behind any regrets. Noah was startled. He didn't expect Aster, who liked to throw tantrums, to suddenly say such words. Not to mention Noah, even Athena was surprised. Holy Sword Spirit, it's rare to hear such rational words from you. I'm just saying what's in my heart. Aster's expression didn't change at all. He lowered his head and said softly. But, when I see Master working hard to not leave behind any regrets, I'm also thinking if I should do something. This time, even Noah was surprised. Aster? Noah sat up and looked at Aster. Is there something you want to do too? Aster was silent for a while before he spoke. A long time ago, my master and I destroyed the Demon King together. Now, the Demon King has appeared again. So, I was wondering if I should go and settle things with them. Without a doubt, the people Aster mentioned could only be Lotus and Lestia. I didn't expect Aster to be thinking about the same thing as me. Noah reached out his hand and patted Aster's head, but his eyes were looking outside the window. I'm also thinking that after I'm done with this world, I'll return to the Elven world and settle things with Lotus. This was the next thing Noah wanted to do. After all, it could be said that Noah was the one who changed Lotus' fate. No matter what, Noah had the obligation to settle things with her. Perhaps, because Aster saw through Noah's thoughts, he took the initiative to mention this matter. No matter what, I'm still Master's sword. Aster said as usual. Everything will be as you wish. Noah smiled and continued to stroke Aster's head. Together with Athena, they looked at the night sky outside the window and enjoyed this rare moment of tranquility. Chapter 1743. After that, just as Noah had predicted, because Fairy Tale had regained the glory of being the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, many magic shooters came to join the guild the next day. Noah did not accept all the magic shooters who came to join the guild because of its reputation. Instead, he went through a series of tests. The content of the tests was not strength. In fact, whether or not one had strength was secondary. For Fairy Tale, the most important thing was not strength, but compatibility. At the very least, Noah did not want his guild, which was full of positive energy, to be turned into a swamp by a motley crew. Therefore, Noah accepted all the magic shooters who were compatible with the members of the guild. However, those with bad natures were all mercilessly thrown out of the door by Noah. He did not show them any mercy at all. This method naturally caused a lot of criticism in the beginning. However, there was one time when a group of magic shooters who were rejected by Noah decided to take advantage of the night to sneak into the guild to wreak havoc as revenge. The next day, all the residents of Magnolia found out. These guys were stripped of all their clothes and hung in the city center for the whole city to see. There was also a recording crystal beside them that recorded the whole process of these guys trying to wreak havoc on Fairy Tale. It was only now that everyone knew the criteria for Fairy Tale selection. They no longer had any objections to it and even started to promote it, causing Fairy Tale's popularity to become more and more prosperous. Apart from that, commissions from all over the kingdom were gradually finding their way to Fairy Tale, allowing the guild's career to return to its peak, perhaps even surpassing it. Under such circumstances, in addition to the 30 million J reward for winning the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, the guild's operations were finally on the right track. Just like that, a week passed in the blink of an eye as the whole Fairy Tale gradually got on the right track. Today was the day of Noah's wedding. Wow! In a room in Strauss' house, Lucy and Snow, who were dressed in bridesmaid attire, looked at the two girls standing in front of them and couldn't help but gasp in amazement. She was wearing a wedding dress that was as white as snow. They were holding extremely beautiful flowers in their hands. Mira and Lisanna stood side by side in front of a full-body mirror. Looking at themselves in the mirror, their delicate faces looked a little dazed, but they couldn't hide the happiness between their brows no matter how hard they tried. Lisanna, in particular, looked at herself in the mirror in her wedding dress, her eyes a little moist. Big sister Mira. Lisanna's eyes were slightly red as she spoke. Am I dreaming? Looking at Lisanna like this, Mira smiled knowingly. She reached out and gently hugged Lisanna, patting her sister's back as she spoke softly. Lisanna will become the most beautiful bride today. This is definitely not a dream. Unlike the gentle and caring Mira, Lisanna's maiden's heart. Myra's greatest wish was to live happily with Noah for the rest of their lives. Lisanna's greatest wish was to become Noah's bride. One yearned for the days to come. The other yearned for the moment when she became the bride of her sweetheart. Although the things they yearned for were different, there was no doubt that these two sisters were in love with Noah. Today was the wedding of these two sisters and Noah. Lisanna, who had always dreamed of becoming Noah's bride, had finally waited for this day to come. Thus, looking at herself in the mirror in her wedding dress, Lisanna couldn't help but feel the emotions in her heart. Her eyes really did turn red. All right, today is a happy day. You can't have this expression. Mira cupped Lisanna's face and gently wiped away some of the tears in her sister's eyes. However, her own eyes were also a little wet. It's okay. Lisanna will definitely be happy in the future. Sister promises you. Yes. Lisanna nodded heavily and smiled. The same goes for Sister Mira. You will definitely be happy with me. That's right. Mira smiled gently. We will definitely be happy together. Seeing the Strauss sisters hugging each other tightly to vent the emotions in their hearts, Lucy and Shirley looked at each other and smiled. All right. It's not like you two have to separate. In the future, you will always live together. Don't make it seem like you are going to separate. Lucy clapped her hands and said with a smile. Noah is already waiting for you. Brides, don't let your groom wait too long. That's right. Shirley nodded. Lord Noah definitely doesn't want to see Lady Mira and Lady Lisanna's eyes red. You two can't cry. Mira and Lisanna looked at each other and smiled. They nodded and separated from each other. Then, Lucy and Shirley stepped forward at the same time and each of them held the hands of the two brides. Let's go. Mira and Lisanna tightened the bouquet in their hands and took a deep breath. After a while, they nodded. At the same time, in one of the guild's rooms, Noah was also prepared. Phew, wearing a suit as white as snow, Noah constantly checked if there was anything messy on his body while nervously asking his companions in the room. This should be fine, right? This is the 4th time you've asked this, Gray said helplessly. It's really fine. It's neat enough. It won't be embarrassing. Apart from Gray, Laxus was also present. How surprising. Raxus made a rare teasing remark. I didn't expect you to be nervous. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but smile bitterly. It had to be said that Noah was more or less nervous. In the past, let alone a small wedding, Noah had experienced even bigger occasions. However, for some reason, at this time, Noah couldn't help but feel nervous. Well, after all, it's a matter of a lifetime. Gray spread his hands and said to Noah. Even if it's you, it's inevitable that you'll be nervous, right? Maybe that's the reason. Noah adjusted his collar a little, then seemed to think of something and looked at Gray. By the way, did you find Naz? Since the last time in the guild, Naz had threatened to prepare for the duel with Noah and rushed out of the guild. This guy had disappeared for a whole week, completely disappearing without a trace. In order to find Naz, everyone went to his house and even asked around the city. In the end, they found out that Naz didn't return home at all this week. Instead, he seemed to have left Magnolia and entered a deep mountain. In order not to let Naz miss his wedding, Noah had asked some of the new members in the guild to go to the mountains to find him. Unfortunately, it seemed that they didn't find him at all. That guy, his mind is probably full of the duel with you now. How can he still remember your wedding? Gray curled his lips. He should have forgotten long ago, right? Well, he's Naz after all. Laxus said so generously. If not, then he's not Naz. Really? Noah said with regret. In other words, Naz won't come to my wedding, right? For that idiot, a wedding is obviously not as important as a meal. Gray patted Noah on the shoulder. You don't have to take it to heart. I know, I just feel that it's a pity. Noah smiled slightly. Besides, Naz is now carefully preparing for the duel with me. I have nothing to complain about. That's good. Laxus glanced at the clock on the wall and said. It's about time. It's time to go. Hearing this, Noah took a deep breath like Mira and Lisanna and then nodded. Then let's go. Chapter 1744. In Magnolia, there was a church. The size of the church was considered large, so the residents of Magnolia called it the cathedral. However, the location of the cathedral was a little remote, and it was not very lively on normal days. Sometimes, not many people would go there. But today, the cathedral seemed to be quite lively. Ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong. The melodious sound of the bell echoed throughout the entire cathedral. At this moment, the sound of cannon salutes rang out. At this moment, the people were cheering. In such a lively atmosphere, in front of the cathedral, the sorcerers from a fairy tale were all dressed in formal attire. Each of them had a smile on their faces, and they held wine glasses in their hands as they laughed and chatted with each other. In addition to the sorcerers from fairy tale, many of the residents of Magnolia had also heard the news and gathered around the periphery of the cathedral to watch. It caused a lot of chatter, and it was very lively. In fact, this kind of liveliness could have been multiplied several times, or even dozens of times. After all, the person getting married today was not an ordinary person. He was a hero who saved the country a week ago, and received the title of one of the 10 Saint Sorcerers, the strongest sorcerer in the continent. He saved the entire Fiori kingdom, and even the entire world. He defeated Iconaroglia and single-handedly stopped a large number of dragons. The sorcerers of the other guilds in the kingdom were in awe of him. The princess of the kingdom was in awe of him. If Noah really wanted to hold a grand wedding, then it would not be strange if all the famous guilds in the kingdom, or even the princess herself, came to congratulate him, let alone the sorcerers of fairy tale. However, Mira and Lisanna did not insist on the size of the wedding. Whether the wedding was grand or not was not a very important matter to the sisters. The two girls only wanted a beautiful wedding, and it was enough for them to become Noah's bride with the blessings of everyone. Therefore, only the members of Fairy Tale were invited to attend today's wedding. Of course, generally speaking, it was enough to invite an entire guild to a wedding. After all, a large magic guide guild would have at least hundreds of members, or even thousands of members. Fairy Tale, on the other hand, had just regained the glory of being the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, but the number of members in the guild had already exceeded 300. With so many people attending the wedding, it was more than enough. In addition, the residents of Magnolia came to liven things up, making the wedding quite lively. Congratulations, President Makarov. Congratulations, congratulations. My grandson is finally married. And he married 2 at once. You're really capable. One by one, the magic shooters toasted and congratulated Makarov, who was also dressed in formal attire. Makarov's old face was full of smiles as he laughed unreservedly while returning the toasts. Glass after glass of wine was poured into Makarov's stomach, causing Makarov's face to turn red. However, Makarov didn't mind at all. Instead, he drank more and more happily, causing people to worry that this old man would pass out drunk before the bride and groom arrived. At least, Mikao and Wakaba expressed their worries. I say, President, no, it should be the previous president, shouldn't you stop? Mikao advised. Your grandson hasn't arrived yet, and the wedding has just begun. If you pass out drunk now, what will happen later? Yes, yes. Kana hugged a wine barrel as she fiercely gulped down wine while speaking drunkenly. You can get drunk at any time, but not today. Former President, it's time for you to restrain yourself. Before saying that, shouldn't you put down that ridiculously large wine barrel in your hands? Wakaba couldn't help but complain. You're not convincing at all, right? Well, don't worry, I'm fine. Makarov patted his chest and said with his head held high. Before I see my great-grandson's face, I, Makarov, won't die like this. No, 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 I'm just telling you to stop drinking, not to die. Mikao said loudly. So to you, not drinking is the same as dying? It's fine, it's fine. Makarov didn't mind Mikao's words at all. He continued to drink happily, and his face became redder and redder. Seeing this scene, even Wendy expressed her worry. President Makarov, are you sure you're fine? I feel that if he continues to drink like this, there will definitely be a problem. Levi sighed. By the way, why aren't the bride and groom here yet? I heard that they're on their way. Julian quickly said. They should be here soon. Hurry up and end this wedding. Gadjalus said with some boredom. Noah, that guy. Not only did he prepare for the wedding, but he didn't prepare any iron. What kind of banquet is this? Is that so? Lily was speechless. I don't think anyone would prepare iron for a wedding banquet. As the crowd continued to clamor, at a certain moment, outside the cathedral, an extremely luxurious carriage slowly drove in amidst the clear sound of wheels. Seeing the carriage, the crowd's expression brightened, and they shouted loudly. They're here, they're here. The bride and groom are here. They're finally here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Continuous cheers began to ring out, causing the saluting cannons to be pulled and set off in midair. Balloons were also released into the air, floating towards the clouds. The scene was quite beautiful. Then, under the crowd's cheers and firecrackers, the luxurious carriage stopped in front of the cathedral. The next moment, the door of the carriage opened. Inside, Noah, who was dressed in a pure white suit, walked down. He raised his head and looked around. A smile slowly appeared on his face. Oh, 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 oh. The crowd cheered loudly. Even the residents of Magnolia cheered and gave Noah their best wishes. Noah raised his hand and waved at the people around him. Then, he turned around and extended his hand into the carriage. Both of her hands, which were wearing white lace gloves made of silk, immediately reached out from the carriage and placed them in Noah's hands. Under Noah's lead, she alighted from the carriage. Of course, the people who came out were Mira and Lisanna. Oh, looking at the two girls who were wearing a pure white wedding dress and holding bright flowers in their hands, with an unconcealable smile on their faces and some shyness and nervousness on their faces, many people in the crowd let out sighs of amazement. When were women at their most beautiful? Everyone had their own opinion on this question. However, everyone present had the same thought in their minds at this moment. That was, at this moment, Mira and Lisanna, in their pure white wedding gowns, were undoubtedly the most beautiful in their lives. Mira was the most popular top model. When she wore a wedding gown, she was so beautiful that people could not take their eyes off her. Lisanna did not have Mira's gentleness and sweetness, but she was more pretty, cute, and mischievous. When she wore a wedding gown, she was equally beautiful. The most beautiful appearance of the two sisters was displayed in front of everyone. How could they not be stunned? In response, Mira and Lisanna only held one of Noah's hands each. Under Noah's lead, they walked along the red carpet, step by step, with smiles on their faces. There was only one person at the front of the red carpet. That person was Makarov. The blush on Makarov's face had disappeared without a trace, as if his performance had been fake. He looked at the couple walking slowly towards him, his face full of gratification. In this way, Noah brought the two brides to Makarov. Their eyes met. Chapter 1745. Looking at the short and old Makarov with a face full of wrinkles, Noah couldn't help but feel sour in his heart. He still remembered that when he was just born and entered this world, Noah didn't have anything other than the appearance and intelligence of a 10-year-old child. He didn't have parents who gave birth to him and didn't have an innocent childhood. He didn't have any memories of being alive and didn't even have a clue of where he came from. His language was completely different from the people of this world. He didn't have any decent clothes on him. As if he was abandoned, Noah was sent to this world and appeared in the forest alone. Everything around him was unfamiliar to Noah at that time. The wild beasts and magical beasts in the forest even treated him as food and were in a very dangerous situation. It was at that time that Makarov found Noah and brought Noah to Fairy Tale. He took him as his adopted grandson and raised Noah. According to Gaia and Aleya, Makarov finding Noah and letting Noah join Fairy Tale seemed to have been arranged by the world. However, this didn't mean that Makarov's feelings for Noah were fake. Makarov wasn't on guard against Noah, who had an unknown background and identity. He also didn't care about it and treated Noah as his own grandson. He treated Noah as if he was his own grandson. At that time, Noah's magic was too strong and his magic went berserk many times, almost destroying the guild. However, Makarov didn't have any ill feelings towards Noah because of this. Instead, he taught Noah nicely. Logically speaking, people like Noah who went berserk from time to time and brought disaster to their surroundings should avoid him and treat Noah as a monster and expel him or even kill him. However, Makarov always believed in Noah's character. He believed that power itself wasn't wrong, but the person who used it was at fault. He didn't have the slightest bit of impatience and taught Noah, guiding Noah to the right path. Compared to Gaia and Aleya, who were chosen by many worlds to be Noah's guides, Makarov was Noah's true guide. Without Makarov, there would be no Noah today. To this day, it had only been about 10 years since he first met Makarov and joined Fairy Tale based on Noah's sense of time. In 10 years, it was this old man, who was twice as short as Noah, who had raised Noah into an adult. Thinking of the past, Noah had the urge to cry at this moment. Noah could tell everyone with certainty that he had never wanted to cry in his life. However, at this moment, the emotions in Noah's heart were surging, causing his eyes to turn red bit by bit. Perhaps because they felt Noah's emotions, Mira and Lisanna hugged Noah's arm tightly and looked straight at Noah's face, silently comforting him. Noah looked at Makarov and said with a hoarse voice. Grandfather. This call made Makarov's eyes turn red. However, the smile on Makarov's face didn't fade. It was still as bright as ever. You don't have to say anything. Under Noah's gaze, Makarov said with a calm smile. Grandfather is proud of you. With that, Noah finally couldn't hold back the emotions in his heart. He couldn't help but close his eyes as tears rolled down his cheeks. Without a doubt, that was the only time in his life that Noah shed tears. Of course, no one had seen Noah like that. However, those who saw Noah shed tears weren't surprised at all. Instead, they smiled as if they understood. Looking at Noah's tearful appearance, Makarov held back his tears and stepped forward with a smile. Today is the day you get married. You can't face everyone with this expression. I'm not crying. Noah didn't wipe away his tears. For the first time, he acted like a stubborn child and said this. It's just the wind, you child. Makarov couldn't help but laugh. Then, he looked at Mira and Lisanna and said softly. I'll leave Noah in your hands. Mira and Lisanna tightened their grip on Noah's arm. Under Makarov's gaze, they nodded heavily and said in unison. We will take good care of Noah, President. Are you still calling me President? Makarov smiled. You should change the way you address me. Hearing this, Mira and Lisanna both blushed and lowered their heads. Grandfather. Good. Good. Makarov laughed out loud and shouted at Noah. Noah, you have to treat your two brides well. If I find out that you bullied them, I won't let you off. Do you understand? I know. Noah held Myra's and Lisanna's hands tightly as he looked at his two brides and declared. I will definitely make them happy. Mira and Lisanna's faces bloomed with smiles. Makarov nodded in satisfaction. He looked around, spread his arms, and shouted to the people around him. Everyone. Please give our warmest blessings to our bride and groom. As soon as he finished speaking. Clap, 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 clap. A burst of warm applause sounded from the surroundings. The group of magic shooters belonging to Fairy Tale were also shouting non-stop. Noah. Don't bully our Mira-chan. Don't bully Lisanna-chan either. Remember to be happy. Bastard. Damn it. I want to get married. Save it. Ha 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 ha. Kind laughter and shouts sounded from the surroundings. Along with the warm applause, they were dedicated to Noah. Noah, Mira, and Lisanna looked at each other and smiled tacitly. Immediately, Noah let go of Mira and Lisanna's hands. He took a step forward and came to Makarov's side. He turned around and looked at his two brides. At the side, Wendy was holding a box with a nervous look on her face as she walked to Noah's side under everyone's gaze. Brother Noah. Wendy raised her head and looked at Noah with a cute smile. In the box in Wendy's hands, there were 2 diamond rings. Both Mira and Lisanna's gazes were immediately drawn to the 2 rings. Unlike the engagement ring, this time, Noah had specially asked someone to make a new wedding ring. Compared to the 2 engagement rings that were made in a hurry before, the 2 wedding rings in front of him were much better in terms of workmanship and quality. The exquisite shape and the resplendent diamonds attracted the hearts of all the girls present. So beautiful. Lucy couldn't help but murmur. Yes. Xuanai agreed softly. It really is beautiful. Even Alusha couldn't help but praise. As for Lebby, Kana, and Julianne, they had already begun to whisper to each other, praising the 2 rings almost non-stop. Naturally, Mira and Lisanna were also captivated by the 2 wedding rings. Ahem. Makarov pretended to be serious and coughed. All right, let's have our brides exchange rings. Noah turned his head and took out the 2 rings from the box in Wendy's hands. He smiled at Mira and Lisanna. My brides, please stretch out your hands. Mira and Lisanna subconsciously extended their hands to Noah. Holding the hands of the 2 beautiful brides, Noah gently put the wedding rings on their ring fingers. Warm applause rang out once more. Mira and Lisanna retracted their rings and couldn't help but throw themselves into Noah's arms. Noah hugged his two brides tightly. Amidst the warm applause, he felt a warmth in his heart. At that moment, Noah, Mira, and Lisanna had finally come to fruition and become a true husband and wife. Chapter 1746. Chirp 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 chirp. When the sun rose into the sky and illuminated the land, the melodious chirping of birds echoed under the clouds, announcing the beginning of a beautiful morning. Under the bright sunlight, Magnolia was still sitting on the ground as usual. On the streets, people came and went. Beside the stalls, people were making a lot of noise. Shouts and noises rang out from the relatively large city. Mixed with the melodious chirping of birds, it actually gave people a sense of tranquility. In such a magnolia, on a busy street facing the sea, there was a house. The size of the house was comparable to a small villa, and it looked quite luxurious. At least, it wouldn't be strange if there were maids and servants coming in and out of the house. However, in fact, there were only 3 people living in this house. Although there were only 3 people, these 3 people were newlyweds. In the room of the newlyweds, the 2 young girls who had just become wives woke up early in the morning. They glanced at their husbands who were sleeping next to them, and then they tiptoed out of the bed at the same time. They went out of the room and entered the kitchen, and began to busy themselves with sounds and laughter. Not long after, Noah also woke up amidst the waves of sweet laughter. He yawned and put on his clothes. After which, he stretched his waist and walked out of the room. Gotcha! The sound of the door opening attracted the attention of the 2 sisters who were busy in the kitchen. Brother Noah. Lisanna was the first to greet Noah. Good morning. Good morning. Noah returned the greeting, but still looked a little sleepy. Good morning, Mira. Good morning. Mira chuckled softly and said in a gentle and considerate manner. The breakfast will be ready soon, just wait for a while. It's all right, the guild is gradually getting on the right track. Even if I don't stay in the guild all the time, there won't be any problems, Noah said lazily as he walked towards the sofa and sat down. So, you guys just have to take it slow. Mira looked at Noah's lazy expression and smiled helplessly. On the other hand, Lisanna puffed up her cheeks and said with some dissatisfaction. Big brother Noah, have you become a little lazy recently? Who's to blame for this? Noah said grumpily. Whether it's cleaning or cooking, all the household chores are taken care of by you 2 sisters. Even when I take a bath at night, you 2 will help me run the bath water. I have nothing to do at home, so how can I not be lazy? But don't you have a lot of things to deal with in the guild? Mira asked, chuckling. We were worried that you would be exhausted, so we didn't want you to be busy. Besides, family matters are what we should do. Big brother Noah, you don't know how lucky you are. Lisanna raised the spatula in her hand, looking indignant. With me and sister Mira as your wives, what's there to be dissatisfied with? I've never said that I was dissatisfied, right? Noah said with a bitter smile. Even if there's something I'm dissatisfied with, it's not because you 2 are so virtuous. Instead, shouldn't you change the way you call him, Big Brother Noah? What does it matter? Big Brother Noah is Big Brother Noah, Lisanna said matter-of-factly. I've been calling him that since I was young. Is there a problem? There's a big problem. Noah rolled his eyes. If others know that I let my wife call me Big Brother, how will they look at me? Is that so? Lisanna tilted her head and asked in puzzlement. But they're used to it. Pfft. Mira couldn't help but laugh out loud, and she couldn't help but say this. Besides, even if others look at Noah differently, it'll still be interesting. Just like that, Noah, Mira, and Lisanna went about their own business while casually chatting about their daily lives. That scene gave people the feeling that the 3 of them had lived together for a long time. However, there was nothing strange about it. Although it was Noah's first time living with Mira and Lisanna, the three of them were childhood playmates who grew up together. They knew each other very well, and there was no need for them to be afraid. Furthermore, Mira and Lisanna were biological sisters who had been living together since they were young. There was no place that they were unfamiliar with. Therefore, there was no sense of awkwardness when the three of them lived together. Furthermore, Mira and Lisanna had been living together with Elfman in the first place. To Mira and Lisanna, it was just a change of residence. Furthermore, the person living with them had changed from a younger brother to a husband. Looking at the two newlyweds who were busy in the kitchen, Noah smiled. After a moment of silence, he suddenly spoke. I plan to leave the guild for a period of time tomorrow. During this period, the two of you have to take good care of yourselves. That one sentence made Mira and Lisanna stop what they were doing. Mira and Lisanna had already known that Noah planned to leave for a period of time to settle some matters. Hence, the two of them weren't too surprised. As for being reluctant to part with him, that wasn't it. After all, as a magic shooter, there were times when he had to leave for a long period of time to complete a mission. Take Kilda's for example, he would usually leave for 2 to 3 years. Just like a homeless child, there was no way to keep him. Noah only planned to leave for a month. As a magic shooter, it was considered a short period of time. Hence, Mira and Lisanna weren't reluctant to part with him. However, they still turned to look at Noah. Are you planning to leave tomorrow? Mira asked thoughtfully. Then we'll help you settle the matters in the guild. Yes, Lisanna said dutifully. In the past, I've been helping the president. No, helping Grandpa with the guild's matters. Also, Grandpa sometimes has to go out for regular meetings. Sister Mira and I are handling the guild's matters. There won't be a problem if you leave it to us. I just want you guys to help me deal with the guild's affairs for the time being, Noah said, smiling. However, if you're too busy, you can't tire yourself out. It's okay. If it's really necessary, Shu and I and Alusha will help us too. You can rest assured and settle your own matters. Mira smiled gently. Do you need to pack anything? Just in case, help me prepare some food and clothes. Noah raised his hand. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed in his hand and turned into a card. This gift card can be used to store food and clothes. It can also store items like magic crystals, magical weapons, and even magic-guided weapons. Just help me put some food, water, and clothes in. In other words, it's something like a storage space for magical equipment, right? Lisanna stepped forward and took the gift card from Noah's hand. She flipped through it curiously while praising it. It can also store food and water. With this, it'll be much more convenient even if it's a long-term mission. Now, I even use this to store Aster and Athena's elven equipment. Noah shrugged. Although the two of them were very dissatisfied at first. Mira and Lisanna couldn't help but laugh when they heard that. Have a good rest today, Mira said. Food, water, and clothes. We'll prepare them for you. Okay. Noah leaned on the sofa comfortably, his expression becoming lazy again. Sorry to trouble you, my wives. The two sisters immediately smiled like flowers. Obviously, they were very happy with Noah's words. Oh, right. Lisanna suddenly remembered something and asked. Then, what about the duel between Brother Noah and Naz? The duel with Naz? Noah opened his eyes, the lazy expression on his face fading away. Then, Noah took out a piece of paper from his pocket. There was a line of words written on the paper. Looking at the words, Noah slowly raised the corner of his mouth. Don't worry, before leaving tomorrow, I'll finish it. Chapter 1747. The next day. In front of his house, Noah put on his coat and turned to look behind him. Mira and Lisanna were standing side by side. Brother Noah. Lisanna handed the dark gold gift card to Noah. Food, water, and clothes are all prepared. The amount is enough to last you 3 months. You can use it without worry. 3 months? Noah took the gift card and was a little surprised. Isn't it a little too much? There's no harm in being prepared. 3 months' worth is more than enough even if Big Brother Noah needs to give it to others. Of course, it's best to prepare as much as possible at a time like this, Lisanna said. These are small matters. The most important thing is that Brother Noah must take good care of himself. Lisanna is right. Mira stepped forward and tidied up Noah's collar in an extremely virtuous manner. No matter what, the most important thing is to take good care of yourself. Don't force yourself. I know. I won't let you worry. Noah smiled. I'll leave the matters of the guild to you for the time being. The 2 sisters nodded and stepped forward at the same time. One on the left and one on the right, they gave Noah a peck on the cheek and left a sentence behind. Be careful on the road. Noah nodded, stretched out his hands, and hugged his 2 wives. He kissed them on the forehead before separating. Then, I'll be going out. After that, Noah opened the door and slowly left the city under the gaze of Mira and Lisanna. Mira and Lisanna watched Noah leave until Noah's back disappeared from their sight. The 2 sisters then relaxed, smiled at each other, and entered the house. On the other hand, after Noah left Magnolia, he did not immediately return to the world between worlds. Instead, he identified the direction and fixed his eyes on a tall mountain. At the next moment, Noah's figure turned into a stream of light and soared into the sky, flying towards the mountain. Who? At the top of the mountain, there was a cold wind that seemed to be spiraling. It blew past, bringing up a cloud of sand and dust that was blown into the distance. In the direction of the dust, Naz was turning his arms as if he was exercising his body. From time to time, he would jump up and down as if he was preparing for exercise. In fact, Naz was indeed doing preparatory exercises. Because, next, Nazi needed to do a lot of exercise. In order to maintain his physical condition at the best level, the always slow-witted Naz also began this method that others didn't think was his style. However, such a performance also proved how serious Naz was about the upcoming duel. Not long after, the opponent that Nazi had carefully prepared for finally arrived. Phew! In the sharp sound of breaking the air, a streamer of light burst from the horizon. It was like a thunderbolt, fiercely falling on the ground. With a pang sound, it stirred up a thick cloud of dust. At the same time, Naz suddenly stopped the movements of his hands. His eyes seemed to be burning with flames, surging with an extremely bright expression. Immediately, under Naz's gaze, the thick sand in front of him slowly dissipated, revealing a figure in the air. Sorry, Naz. Noah raised his head and met Naz's gaze. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. I'm not too late, right? I'm too late. Naz grinned and said so. I'm already burning up. In that case, when you sent the challenge letter to me, you should have marked the time on it, right? Noah took out a piece of paper from his arms and said helplessly. In the end, you only told me a vague location and didn't even mark the time. Who knows if I will make you wait for a long time. Ah. Naz seemed to have just recalled this matter and said in a sudden realization. If that's the case, it should be like this. You. Noah was speechless. This so-called challenge letter was found on the bar counter of the guild the night before when Noah was about to go home. Although there was no signature and no identification, Noah almost immediately understood who this challenge letter belonged to. Except for Naz, there was no other candidate. However, the person who helped Naz to send the challenge letter to the guild should be Hubby, right? Thinking of this, Noah glanced around, but he didn't find Hubby. Seeing Noah looking around, Naz surprisingly understood what Noah was looking for and said this directly. Don't look for Hubby, I asked him to go back to the guild first. Really? Noah was taken aback slightly. In other words, this time only the two of us will have a duel? Yes. Naz stretched out his left hand and held his right arm tightly. After all, in order to draw out the power in my body, I have already forced myself. Finally, I was very lucky to succeed in the situation of risking my life, but that's it. I don't have the confidence to control it at all. If hubby is here, I don't know if he will be hurt. Draw out the power in your body? Noah raised his eyebrows and looked at Naz's right arm. Only then did Noah notice. There was a bandage wrapped around Naz's right arm. That doesn't seem to be because of injury. With Noah's perception ability, he could vaguely feel it. Under the bandage, there was a rather scorching breath undulating. So, Noah's face slowly showed an expression of, as expected. Do you really have a hidden trump card? That's not my hidden trump card, but a gift from someone else. Naz's gaze had been fixed on Noah, but he began to untie the bandage wrapped around his right arm. Although I'm very unwilling, I know that it's impossible to win against you with my own strength, so I can only put my mind on this power. With such a sentence, Naz suddenly tore off the bandage on his right arm. This power belongs to the dragon. When these words came out of Naz's mouth, a terrifying heat surged from his body. Chi 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 chi. Around Naz, the air began to distort, and even smoke rose as if it was on fire, making a scorching sound. The entire space seemed to have been roasted into a fiery red color. Boom! With a burst of sound, Naz's right arm began to burn with flames. The flame actually increased the surrounding heat by another level, causing the ground under Naz's feet to be melted by the amazing heat and began to sink. Seeing this scene, Noah's eyes narrowed. Because under Noah's perception ability, at this time, Naz's magic power was showing a trend of crazy skyrocketing. It kept rising, and his aura also became more and more terrifying. That aura almost instantly skyrocketed to the level that surpassed Alusha and Kagura, and even surpassed Jura immediately. Moreover, it was still rising. In the blink of an eye, under Noah's perception ability, Naz's magic power suddenly rose to the level that was comparable to the most vicious and evil black mage in history, and even surpassed it in the past. What does this mean? It means that Naz's power, which was at the bottom of the 5-digit level at the beginning, instantly rose to the level of the gods in the box, which was the peak of the 5-digit level. No. It's not just the peak of the 5-digit level. The power of that aura is extremely close to the 4-digit level. It's only one step away from reaching the 4-digit level. Naz. Noah was really surprised. He. Naz grinned, and his eyes flashed. Take this. Noah. As soon as his voice fell. Boom. In the next moment, Naz tightened his body. Under the situation where the ground was crushed, he stirred up a hurricane impact. Like a bullet out of a barrel, he violently shot in front of Noah. Hiya. In the midst of the violent roar, Naz's entire body surged with surging flames. As Noah's pupils suddenly shrank, Naz charged in Noah's direction and fiercely blasted out a shocking punch. Boom! A burst of scorching flames exploded on top of the mountain, attacking in all directions. Chapter 1748. Boom! Extremely surging flames erupted from the top of a mountain outside Magnolia. Like the wrath of the god of fire, it instantly raised the temperature of the entire world a little, drying up the gale. Amidst the scalp-numbing burning sounds, the entire mountain peak was like a fragile cake. The top of the mountain was constantly melting under the burning flames. The rocks and rock plates were like cream, melting bit by bit into a grease-like substance. It was incomparably terrifying. As for the flowers and trees, they had long been burned into ashes and disappeared without a trace under the burning of the surging flames. That scene was like a natural disaster. On the top of the melting mountain, the earth was also burning, turning into a sea of fire with amazing heat. In the center of the sea of fire, Noah caught the fist of Nazi, whose whole body was burning in flames. Looking closely, on Noah's arm, there were magic lines flashing like electric wires. Impressively, it was the strengthening magic that could give Noah a physical ability comparable to the divine level. However, the sleeve on Noah's arm had long been burned to the point that not a single trace of ash could be seen. It's really amazing. Noah sensed the astonishing heat that was constantly being released from Naz's body. An inconceivable light appeared in his deep, dark eyes. Nazi, I didn't expect you to have this level of power. It's you who is amazing. You actually took this punch head on. As expected of Noah. Nazi was like a warrior, showing a vigorous smile. However, as I said before, this power doesn't belong to me. It's the power of the dragon. The power of the dragon. Noah's eyes flickered. Could it be, what? Have you guessed it? Nazi grinned. Yes, this is the power that Ignir left for me. The Fire Dragon King, Ignir. That was an absolute powerhouse in the Dragon Clan, someone who even dared to face Iconoraglia. The Dragon Clan's Fire Dragon Clan even worshipped him as their king. Unfortunately, such an existence's soul had long been sucked away by Akonrolia's dragon-slaying magic 400 years ago. Only his power remained in Naz's body to prolong his life. Half a month ago, Ignir and the rest of the dragons disappeared from Cloacas under the watchful eyes of Noah and the others. However, even though it had disappeared, Ignir seemed to have left all his remaining power in Naz's body. That's really a very amazing power, a power that I couldn't imagine before no matter what. Naz said as he tightened his fist that was caught by Noah. Originally, with my current strength, there was no way to unseal this power. Even if I spent a year or so, I might not be able to unseal it and use it. However, a few days ago, I accidentally unsealed this power. Although it's very difficult to control, it shouldn't be a problem to use it. Naz smiled. Perhaps, even Ignir wants to fight you. That's why he asked me to release this power, right? Relying on this power, Naz's magic power skyrocketed crazily, rising to the peak of 5 digits. He was only one step away from entering the 4-digit level. Thanks to this power, Naz finally had the strength to compete with Noah. Now, I'm not the only one fighting with you. There's also my father, the Fire Dragon King Ignir. Naz shouted. Noah. Can you defeat me and Ignir? As soon as his voice fell, an amazing flame burned wildly on Naz's right fist, releasing a terrifying heat. In that scorching flame, Noah could vaguely see. On Naz's right arm, a dragon tattoo was branded there. That was the power that Ignir left for Naz. Relying on this power, Naz roared violently. With a shake of his arm, he brought out an extremely terrifying flame and blasted it in Noah's direction without any fancy moves. Wherever the fist passed, the air was burned and exploded, causing a series of sonic booms. The momentum was quite terrifying. Even Noah didn't dare to be careless in the face of this level of power. At that moment, Noah's hands and feet flashed with electric line-like magic lines. After that, Noah fiercely clenched his fist, bringing along a cold blade-like force, and as fast as lightning, he met Naz's fist head-on without showing any signs of weakness. Bang! The fist that carried a powerful gust of wind and the fist that carried a shocking amount of heat collided fiercely, causing a terrifying gust of wind ripple and surging waves of fire to surge out, instantly expanding to a distance of several dozen meters. Kacha kacha kacha. On the ground, cracks spread rapidly from the feet of Noah and Naz. The powerful force that swept out first shook the ground into layers of cracks. Even the gravel that burst out from the cracks was directly burned into nothingness by the surging flames. The scene was quite shocking. In such a collision, a figure retreated violently from the surging gale and wave of fire, as if he was blown away, looking a little embarrassed. That person was Noah. For the first time, Noah fell into a disadvantageous position and was suppressed by Naz. In the surging gale and wave of fire, Naz, whose whole body was burning with flames, rushed out with a terrifying momentum and heat to the front of Noah. Fire Dragon King's bursting fist. The fist burning with flames was like a meteorite, causing a sonic boom along the way. It blasted mercilessly toward Noah's face. Before the fist hit, the flames on it made the bangs on Noah's forehead seem to be burned, emitting a burnt smell. Facing Naz's attack, Noah was secretly speechless and tightened his feet. Mana veins that looked like electric wires flickered on it, increasing the power of Noah's feet. As he stomped on the ground, some of the gravel on the ground cracked, and his figure flashed away, dodging the terrifying punch. It's not over yet. After the punch missed, Naz not only did not stop, but both of his hands were burning with surging flames. Like a furious fire dragon, he repeatedly blasted out heavy meteorite-like fists in the direction of Noah. Suddenly, Naz's fists directly turned into fiery red fist shadows, constantly flying out and blasting toward Noah overwhelmingly. The momentum was really terrifying, causing Noah's face to become solemn. However, this situation also made Noah's heart surge with blood, and the magic power in his body skyrocketed in an instant. Immediately, Noah raised his arms. Bang 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 bang. The storm-like punches suddenly fell fiercely on Noah's raised arms. As if causing a chain explosion, waves of fire burst out and covered Noah's body. Hiya! Naz was like an angry dragon. He repeatedly swung his fists that carried powerful flames in front of him, causing bursts of flames to explode one after another like bombs, stirring up waves of fire. It was like a whistling flood that covered the sky and earth. Under the powerful blow, the entire mountain top trembled slightly. At a certain moment, an explosion that was much louder than any previous explosion burst out, causing a figure to fly out of the fire wave. He took a few steps back before stabilizing his figure. As soon as his figure stabilized, a fierce light flashed in Noah's eyes. He raised a hand in the direction of Naz, who was still rushing toward him. A faint blue magic array flashed in front of Noah's palm. Inside, a vast magic power gathered and formed, turning into a huge beam of light that burst out from the magic array. Like a laser, it flashed in the space and shot straight at Naz. Facing the huge magic power beam, Naz just clenched his fist tightly. The flames on his body rose and surged to his fist. Under Naz's wave, he blasted out. With a muffled sound, Naz's fist fiercely hit the magic power beam that burst out. The astonishing power and heat directly shattered the magic light beam with a single punch. Noah suddenly stood up in shock. Chapter 1749. After obtaining Ignir's power, Naz's strength had really skyrocketed to a level that even Noah had to treat with caution. He was at the top of the 5-digit level, and even close to the 4-digit level. That level of power was enough to threaten Noah. After all, if he only used strengthening magic, although Noah could obtain a physical ability comparable to a 5-digit level, it was at best a physical ability. Under such circumstances, compared to Naz, who was infinitely close to the 4-digit level, Noah would undoubtedly be weaker. However, Noah did not expect that even the magic cannon would be shattered by Naz's punch, and it could not play any role at all. It was conceivable how powerful Naz was now. Although he kept saying that he could not completely control Ignir's power, Naz might not have realized that as the battle progressed, he was becoming more and more proficient in controlling his current power. If this continued, perhaps Naz would be able to completely control Ignir's power in the future. At that time, Naz was likely to directly break through to the 4-digit level. "You're really powerful, Naz." In Noah's surprise, Naz, who had shattered the magic light beam with one punch, rushed toward Noah with an indomitable momentum. The flames on his fist surged wildly, making Noah feel a sense of alarm. Hiya hiya. In the midst of the violent roar, Naz's figure was like an exploding rocket, and he rushed above Noah's head. His fist, which was surging with surging flames, seemed to be roaring, and turned into an overwhelming punch, waving at Noah's body like a storm. All the space in his field of vision was occupied by the overwhelming flaming fist shadows. The dark and deep eyes were rendered as sparkling as gemstones by the color of the flames. Looking at the curtain of fists that shrouded him like a storm with a faint dragon-like roar, Noah took a deep breath, and the magic power in his body surged out like a surging river. Clang! On Noah's pair of arms, the electric line-like magic lines flashed with an unprecedentedly bright light. Noah directly raised his arms and faced the overwhelming flaming fist shadows. He also waved his fists rapidly, not to be outdone. Bang 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 bang. Amidst the muffled sounds, the fists carrying flames and the fists carrying strong winds constantly collided with each other, causing circles of shock waves to shake the air. Every time they collided, cracks that were nearly half a meter deep would appear where Noah's feet were on the ground, causing the ground to sink layer by layer. After obtaining Ignir's power, Nez used the Dragon Slayer magic like a real dragon. Every punch made Noah feel a sense of heaviness. However, despite the heaviness, Naz's punches were not to the point where even Noah couldn't take them. Coupled with his superb perception ability, Naz's seemingly stormy punches, in fact, the trajectory of each punch was clearly fed back to Noah's mind. As a result, Noah just kept punching like Naz, relying on his god-level physical ability to take on each punch. Sure enough, it still doesn't work. Naz was not surprised by Noah's impregnable defense. Although he had obtained Ignir's power, no matter how powerful Ignir's power was, it was still weaker than Akanalia's. As for Noah, he was someone who could even defeat Akanarolia. Therefore, from the beginning, Naz knew that obtaining Ignir's power only gave him the qualifications to challenge Noah. It was not a trump card that allowed him to defeat Noah. So, how could he defeat Noah? Naz didn't consider this at all. Because, I'm already burning. With a low shout, Naz suddenly withdrew his fist, and the overwhelming flaming fist shadows that shrouded Noah condensed together at lightning speed, converging on Naz's raised fist. Take this. The flaming fist that gathered all of Naz's power burst out, stirring up a circle of flame ripples. It was like a meteor that was spraying flames. With a thunderous momentum, it heavily hit Noah's chest. Come on. A burning desire to fight finally surged in Noah's eyes. Vast demonic power surged from within his body. His fist was also lifted, and suddenly met the fire fist that was explosively coming towards him. Boom! A heavy muffled sound that made people's eardrums hurt resounded. A terrifying shockwave mixed with boiling hot waves of fire, like an exploding hurricane, suddenly shook in all directions. The terrifying impact constantly acted on the ground, causing the mountain to tremble. The ground seemed to be collapsing as it continued to sink. For a moment, the rocks cracked, the gravel splashed, the waves of fire surged, and the wind blew wildly. The entire peak of the mountain was like an erupting volcano. The fiery red pillar of chi soared into the sky, directly piercing the clouds in the sky and dispersing them. It wasn't until a long time later that the flame pillar that soared into the sky subsided little by little, slowly shrinking back to the top of the mountain. And the huge rocks that burst out from the top of the mountain rolled down the steep slope of the mountain with great momentum in the direction of the foot of the mountain. As for the top of the mountain, most of it had already melted, becoming like a candle with only half of it left. It looked very frightening. The billowing waves of fire were still surging there, rendering the entire mountain into a flaming mountain, which was extremely shocking to the eyes. Huff, huff, ha, ha, in the center of the sea of fire, Noah and Naz were facing each other at a distance. One was calming his breathing, while the other was gasping for air. Upon closer inspection, whether it was Noah or Naz, one of their arms seemed to have been scratched with several wounds, and blood was flowing out. Bursts of stinging pain hit Noah and Naz's minds. However, the two of them seemed to feel nothing. They looked at each other, and a smile suddenly appeared on their faces. You're really strong, Noah. Naz smiled very excitedly. Even with the power that Ignir left for me, there's no way I can win against you at once. You're really powerful. Same here, Naz. Noah shook off the blood on his arm and looked at Naz very seriously. Although you're using Ignir's power, you're able to fully utilize such a powerful power without suffering any of the side effects. This proves that you yourself also have the potential to reach this realm. Naz, you're really amazing. At this point, Noah's eyes flashed. So, next, I'm going to use all my strength. As soon as he finished speaking, a small silver sword fell into Noah's hand in a flash. Seeing this, Naz's pupils suddenly shrank. Cold Steel Queen, the holy sword that slays demons and demons, turn into a sword of steel and bestow me with divine power. In the incantation written in Elvish, a brilliant white light bloomed from Noah's hand. The Elvish device, which had the shape of a silver holy sword, suddenly appeared in Noah's hand in a burst of dazzling light particles. Noah held it tightly. It's time to decide the winner. Naz. Noah raised the holy sword in his hand and pointed at Naz from afar. Next attack. I'll knock you down. Hearing this, Naz clenched his fist, and the corners of his mouth curled up little by little. Immediately, an unprecedentedly hot flame burst out from Naz's body. Just what I want. The flame that released heat that could melt the earth was like a whirlpool that spun on Naz's fist. The magic power that was as ferocious as a Tyrannosaurus Rex burst out from Naz's body like a flood. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a huge fire dragon. The huge fire dragon roared behind Naz, stirring up rolling sound waves that turned into an impact wind. It expanded continuously and annihilated the surrounding burning sea of fire. One side was holding the holy sword that shone with a brilliant white light. The other side was holding the swirling flame like a whirlpool. In the next second, Noah and Naz burst out at the same time, turning into a white comet and a red meteor. Absolute sword skill. Form 4 Flame Slash. Dragon Slayer Mystery. Fire-type Red Lotus Phoenix Sword. After a while, the white comet and the red meteor quietly collided. Chapter 1750. In Magnolia, the people were still going on as usual, displaying the liveliness of a city. On the busy streets, people were chatting with each other amidst the commotion. It felt like a market. At a certain moment, a strange phenomenon occurred. Rumble, the ground suddenly trembled for no reason, causing the residents of Magnolia to panic on the streets. What's going on? What's going on? Is it an earthquake? People were panicking on the streets, but they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. However, the earthquake left as quickly as it came. After a minute, the trembling ground began to calm down slowly, and the residents of Magnolia heaved a sigh of relief. Thank goodness it was just an ordinary earthquake. Yeah. I thought the dragons were coming to attack Magnolia after attacking Coloca's. Aren't you overthinking it? How can there be so many giant dragons attacking everywhere? Besides, even if there are, the hero who is ranked first among the 10 great Saint Magi is in Magnolia. If the giant dragons dare to attack, they will be wiped out in a matter of minutes. That's right. But I heard that the hero has left Magnolia temporarily to carry out a mission. Really? In an instant, the entire street once again returned to its bustling state like a market. To the residents of Magnolia, this slight earthquake was just an episode that they would forget in the blink of an eye. What they did not know was that the person who caused this phenomenon was the so-called hero who saved the country. Paw. 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 Along with a series of crisp sounds, the gravel rolled on the ground, causing the crisp sounds to echo in the air. Even the sound of rolling stones could be clearly heard. One could imagine how quiet the surroundings were. However, just a minute ago, there was an earth-shattering commotion here. As for why, one only needed to look at the scene to understand clearly. Crack, amidst the faint cracking sounds, cracks began to spread on the ground without leaving a trace. Crack, a huge rock suddenly turned into a pile of powder without any warning and scattered all over the ground. Similar phenomena occurred frequently in this part of the world. Originally, there should have been a tall mountain here. Unfortunately, the mountain had completely vanished now, and only piles of crushed rocks and debris covered the entire ground, causing it to seem to be in an extremely sorry state. From the rubble, one could vaguely see some traces of the mountain that was originally here. In other words, the mountain that had completely disappeared had now shockingly turned into a pile of rubble. Taking a closer look, there was actually a huge crater in the middle of the rubble and debris. The crater was more than a few hundred meters in diameter, and it looked as if the ground had been pierced through. It was quite shocking. That was not the worst of it. The truly hair-raising phenomenon was in the huge crater. There was nothing inside. Some of them looked as if they had been roasted by the flames of hell, turning the land charred black. However, in such a charred ground, two breaths were rising and falling. Phew! Holding the silver holy sword that was shining with a brilliant white light, Noah let out a heavy sigh of relief and lowered his head to look in front of him. Ha, 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 Naz was lying on the charred ground. His entire body was covered in sweat as if he was exhausted. He couldn't help but gasp for breath. Chi! In the midst of the burning sound, a dragon tattoo on Naz's right arm that was emitting an astonishing heat was disappearing bit by bit. With the disappearance of the dragon tattoo, the aura on Naz's body also gradually faded. In the end, it fell to its usual level. Clearly feeling this change, Noah laughed bitterly. As expected, the power that Ignir left for you is only temporary. Moreover, after using it once, it will disappear and never come back. The bitter smile on Naz's face became even more intense. In the end, I still can't defeat you. With that said, Naz's face was filled with an extremely strong sense of unwillingness. Of course, he was unwilling. Since he was young, the person that Naz wanted to defeat the most was Noah. However, as he grew older, Noah grew at an astonishing speed, making Naz feel that he could not catch up. This time, with the help of the power left by Ignir, he could finally compete with Noah. In the end, he still could not win even after trying his best. How could the competitive Naz be willing to accept this? However, while he was unwilling, Naz also felt a kind of joy from the bottom of his heart. That was the satisfaction that could only be felt after fighting with all his strength. Perhaps, everyone thought that Naz was just a person who did not admit defeat. In fact, Naz was very unwilling to admit defeat and even very competitive. However, what Naz wanted to enjoy the most was not the result, but the process of the duel. In such a mood, Naz cast his gaze on Noah. While panting violently, a big smile appeared on his face as if it came from the bottom of his heart. Let's have a showdown next time. Hearing this, Noah was startled at first, and then he smiled as well. Yeah. Noah extended his hand to Naz, who was lying on the ground. Let's have a showdown next time. Naz grinned and raised his hand with difficulty. Slowly but firmly, he held Noah's outstretched hand and held it tightly with Noah's hand. A ray of sunlight shone down from the clouds in the sky and hit Noah and Naz's tightly held hands. Although it was only two very small human hands that were equivalent to the entire world, at this moment, the world seemed to revolve around these two protagonists, causing the sky to be illuminated by the sunlight. This scene happened to fall into the eyes of a person. In the eyes of a petite girl who looked like a fairy. The child of the world and the child of the dragon. Mavis smiled. What an incredible two children. The place called Between the Worlds was still as pure white as ever, without a single trace of filth. Pieces of pure white feathers fluttered around. Waves of soft white light emitted from those feathers, illuminating the world. That scene was like a dream. It was so beautiful. However, above this pure white world, in the sky, there was a crystal-clear barrier covering the entire sky. Outside the barrier, the grim reapers in red robes were like phantoms that constantly wandered around. They were densely packed and filled the entire sky, making people feel very uncomfortable. Noah, who returned here, raised his head almost immediately and looked at the sky. After confirming that there was no problem with the barrier, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then, Noah turned his head and looked in another direction. There, an outline connected to 10 patterns, with a sun imprinted in the center. There were 24 engraved stone plates suspended in the air. Around the stone plate, strange and incomprehensible characters revolved around it, slowly rotating. On both sides of the stone plate, Gaia and Alea closed their eyes, their palms facing forward. A piece of sparkling crystal was there, slowly rotating and releasing waves of white mist. Under Gaia and Alea's control, the mist was injected into the stone plate bit by bit. Noah could feel it. As this scene progressed, the stone plate began to undergo a qualitative change. However, this change was not complete, and it needed time to slowly settle. Seeing this, Noah understood. Gaia and Alea's work was not complete. Just right, I will have more time to do what I want to do. After saying this, Noah turned around and slightly raised his hand. A feather suddenly floated in front of Noah. Noah stretched out his finger and lightly touched the feather. In the next second, Noah disappeared from where he was, allowing the source of this pure white world to return to its original tranquility. Chapter 1751. Alicia Elven Academy. Alicia Elven Academy was a noble academy that trained witches from all over the Alicia Empire to become first-rate elves. The academy had an elven forest and an academy city. It occupied a vast area, and teachers who were as powerful as the elven knights of the imperial capital stayed here. It was not inferior to a small country, so this academy was like a small independent country with a strong sense of autonomy. Recently, the atmosphere in Alicia Elf Academy had gradually become tense to the point that even outsiders could feel it. The reason was very simple. It was because the Elven Sword Dance Festival was about to begin. It was a sacrifice to the Elven King, who was equivalent to the world itself. At the same time, it was the largest ceremony to determine the strongest Elven envoy, the Elven Sword Dance Festival. The winner could not only make a wish to the Elven King, but also obtain unimaginable fame and become an elven envoy respected by all the major countries. They were like idols in the world of elven envoys. Of course, those who could participate in the Elven Sword Dance Festival were the true elites carefully selected from all the major countries. Therefore, Alicia Elven Academy, as an academy that specialized in nurturing outstanding elven envoys, was able to recommend 3 teams to participate in the festival. From this, one could see the status of Alicia Elven Academy in the Alicia Empire. Not to mention, the dean of the academy was also known as the strongest elven envoy on the continent. She was known as the Dusk Witch by the people. In order to compete for the right to participate in the Elven Sword Dance Festival, the atmosphere in Alicia Elven Academy had been very tense recently. Because this year's Elven Sword Dance Festival was a team competition, it required the participants to form a team of 5. During this period of time, not only were the students in the academy caught up in the competition for talents, but they also frequently participated in team battles for the sake of ranking, trying to squeeze into the top 3 and obtain the right to participate in the competition. Under such circumstances, even the top 3 teams had been working very hard in the past month in order to prevent their rankings from being snatched away. They had been quite busy. The only exception was the team in the first place. Fairy Tale. A month ago, this team had already obtained enough points to leave the second-place team in the dust. They were almost firmly in the first place. Therefore, a month ago, Fairy Tale announced that they were giving up on all of their upcoming ranking matches. Each of their members took a month off to visit their families and report the good news. In fact, after an entire month of chasing, the second-place team still hadn't caught up to Fairy Tale's score and was unable to squeeze into first place. Seeing that the Elven Sword Dance Festival was about to begin, everyone knew that this eye-catching party would definitely be able to enter the Elven Sword Dance Festival. The second and third ranked teams were naturally very unwilling to accept this fact, but there was nothing they could do. Under such an atmosphere, Noah returned to the academy. "You're finally back." In the dean's office, Grey Vaz placed the documents in her hands on the table, crossed her arms, and raised her head slightly with a pair of small glasses. She looked forward and said sarcastically, "If you didn't come back, I would have suspected that you were afraid of fighting with Lotus, so you ran away. We haven't seen each other for a month. You just came back, and you're using this kind of tone to mock your own student?" Noah said with narrowed eyes. "You actually still have the energy to mock me. Looks like I don't have to worry about whether you need to lie in the ward again." A month ago, Grey Vaz was still lying in the hospital bed recuperating. The reason was that she wanted to pass on the secret of the ultimate sword technique to Noah and force herself to fight. Originally, the power of an elven envoy would gradually decline after the age of 25 until they completely lost the power of an elven envoy. However, Grey Vaz had won in the Elven Sword Dance Festival and made a wish that she could obtain an eternally young body. That was why she still retained the power of an elven envoy after nearly 30 years. However, this ability had completely disappeared a month ago. In order to pass on the secret of the ultimate sword technique to Noah, Grey Vaz didn't care about the side effects of the curse engraving in her heart and forced herself to fight. In the end, after she fell, she completely lost her power as an elven envoy. Because of this, the moment Noah returned to this world and returned to the academy, the first thing he did was to visit Greyvath. After all, the strongest elven envoy on the continent had disappeared because of him. Noah should show some concern no matter what. Who would have thought that this witch's personality was still so bad? She offended Noah right away, making Noah speechless. And this result was obviously what Grey Vaz wanted to see. There's no need for unnecessary concern. Just like what you see now, I'm very well. There's no problem at all. Grey Vaz said slowly. Kid, you just like to worry. Undoubtedly, you're a big man, but you're acting coy like a little woman. You won't be able to win the favor of girls like this. Noah really wanted to tell Grey Vaz that he had just gotten married to two delicate beauties. In addition, there were many people he wanted to marry. He was sure that he would be much happier than a certain witch who was already 40 years old and still hadn't found anyone to marry. However, of course, once this sentence came out of Noah's mouth, Grey Vaz would definitely kill him. Of course, it wasn't a real kill, but a social kill. Forget it. I've indeed seen that you're more energetic than anyone else. I'm just here to report to you, lest the Great Witch really thinks that I've escaped. Noah pursed his lips and asked. Oh, right. Are the others back? Your harem members? Grey Vaz replied half-heartedly. No, none of them are back yet. But they should be back soon. So, if you want to harm someone, you'd better take advantage of this period of time to get it done. But remember, don't get anyone pregnant. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain it to the nobles. Although Noah really wanted to refute Grey Vaz's words, he knew that it would only give Grey Vaz more opportunities to tease him. Thus, he suppressed his urge and sighed. Since that's the case, I'll head back first. Go ahead. Grey Vaz picked up the document on the table again and browsed through it while speaking without raising her head. Remember not to wander around and cause unnecessary trouble for me. Noah ignored Grey Vaz's obvious teasing. He waved his hand, turned around, and walked towards the door. After Noah left, Grey Vaz raised her head from the document in her hand and looked towards the door. She sighed faintly. You're not going to ask anything? Grey Vaz thought that Noah would definitely ask her why she insisted on letting him participate in the Elven Sword Dance Festival. She didn't expect that Noah didn't ask anything. Should I say that you're considerate? Or that you're too indifferent? Grey Vaz laughed self-deprecatingly. But you're my hope now. I can only rely on you, kid. On the other hand, Noah, who had just left the dean's office, walked along the corridor of the academy and attracted a lot of attention. Quick! Look! That male elf is back. It's true. It wasn't easy for me to not have to worry about being tainted. What should I do now? Yeah, but don't you think that he's actually very handsome? Well, a little bit. If I'm tainted by him, I think it's not bad. All of a sudden, all sorts of unscrupulous conversations could be heard from the surroundings. Noah had a feeling that he hadn't felt in a long time. These young ladies are still so pure. Noah, who felt that he hadn't felt this way for a long time, must be sick in the head. But, it's still better than being treated as a pure pervert. Noah walked out of the school building with such a strange feeling. He entered the courtyard and returned to his room in the dormitory of the Crow class. However, a series of noises could be heard from the room and attracted Noah's attention. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.